Computer. Okay, starting the live show right now. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the live pre-show for episode 329 of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube, and thank you. An additional thank you to those actually watching live right now. Hi, K-Towny City in the chat.
What up, K-Towny City? Hi everyone. It's this is the secret part of the show where Elon and I give all the best advice.
The real advice. Didn't you have that idea that time, Brian, where we would do podcast, like people would pay us to do a fake version of the podcast where we give bad advice that they can share with their, competitors? I feel like we haven't exactly figured out how to do that yet, but I think it's a huge business idea if we can make it work.
Just pump, now that we've built our reputation, just destroy our credibility.
I mean, what's it really worth anyways, right? At the end of the day.
What's what really worth?
Our reputation, like our fantasy hockey knowledge reputation. Like if tomorrow, I blow it up. If tomorrow I'm just like, you know what? Hot take, Connor McDavid's not going to get another point this season. And then he gets like 5 points the next day and everyone's like, Elon's an idiot. Stop listening to his show. Well, okay. So it's a bummer a little bit, but I guess at the end of the day, I'll get over it. Oh, Matt Dow? Is that Matt Dowgallo, the one who I talked to yesterday?
Hey, Matt.
Oh, we have a awesome interview to drop on the Stat Attack. I guess that's going to come out tomorrow. That's going to be so good. That was fun. Okay, Brian, let's get you.
Had some fun little chats on Discord lately.
He's a good guy. He's in your division, your competitors. I think there's 3 of you. Well, there's lots of people in your division, right? But the 3 that I know that are really good are you, Matt, and Mike, who was in tier 1 forever. And now Mike's like in first. And I feel like there's only 2 spots. Only 2 of you can get to tier 1 next year from your spot. And so one of you, or maybe none of you, like, or more than one of you, right? They're going to be disappointed, but it's going to be a shame. And I'll feel bad for whoever doesn't make it. All right, Brian, how about I'm going to say something very quickly and then we'll get started. So to anyone watching live, I say this every week, but just a really quick heads up that we would super appreciate if you enjoy watching the show, consuming it on YouTube and not from our podcast. That's like cool. You're not getting the full edited version that I work really hard on, but that's cool. But we would still appreciate if you could still subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, because we're on the Blue Wire Network, and the way they're judging if this relationship is working for them and if we're a popular podcast is based on our downloads, and they're not counting YouTube views. So
also it's not just oh, I guess I'll move my mic now.
Yeah, that would be good.
It's not just Blue Wire. It's like, charts and stuff. So like if we, hopefully you like us, and because you like us, you want the show to grow and to be successful. And the best way to do that is to just juice those download numbers, baby. Yeah.
Make multiple accounts on your devices.
You make this joke every time, and I always have to.
Not a joke.
Oh my God.
I definitely am subscribed on Elon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
No more.
Okay.
But thanks everyone who's here live and who downloads, puts it in your feed, which is, I'm sure, very carefully curated. Oh, also, to anyone who's here and wants to give us some live feedback, like maybe you're not on our Discord group, you're not a patron, and you haven't had the chance to weigh in on the Clipping Karlsson that we released yesterday. We'd love to hear what you have to think, and if that's something, like, I think we're going to keep doing it. So
we'll keep doing it unless people say, please stop doing that. I don't like it.
Yeah. So this is your chance to say, please stop doing that. But even also,
I would appreciate it.
Yeah. Definitely be honest.
Yeah.
You gotta let us know. Give us the opportunity to fix it. But also good to know if we've done something right. So, feel free to tell us that too.
I think it's fun. And obviously we'll build on it as time goes. All right. So, but that, Brian, I actually want to say on the show. So, how about that could be part of the intro, is talk about Clipping Karlsson. But okay, with that, let's get started.
Yeah. Just a sec. Are we all good with ad stuff for this show?
Well, you're going to do the ad about my bookie.
Yeah.
And the Dauber has a mid-season guide now, right?
And we have no reads for B-dubs?
No. Just leave a spot, basically. Okay, wait. So Dauber does have. I retweeted something about Dauber's mid-season guide, so I feel like that exists. Let me just find that tweet.
I guess it would be bad if I went to restart my computer now.
You want to do that?
I mean, it's just been a little sluggish, but it's okay.
Doesn't that take
be bad if I did that?
I mean,
it'd be like less than 5 minutes.
It would also be bad if you didn't do it and then something went wrong mid-show.
Okay, let me do it.
Oh man.
And then we'll start the recording again. I'll be right back.
Okay. So yeah, if anyone wants to throw me a question in the chat for some unprepared banter, or if anyone wants to come on the show, DM me right now on Discord if you want to come chat on the show, and we could kill some time together waiting for Brian to restart his computer. Get going, Brian. You're still on the...
do you have a spot where you want to do the ad break?
I don't know. 30 minutes in.
I'll throw it after Columbus.
Okay. Man, it's gonna be a late night.
Oh my God!
Aren't you gonna be so tired?
Yes,
I'm worried for you.
You told me before the show that you're worried for you too, which I'm worried. I'm worried for us. I'll be right back.
Okay. Man, one day we'll be broadcasting on a major net. Get out of here, Brian.
I'm trying. Everything is interrupting my restart.
Oh my God. Yeah, one day we'll be recording out of TSN studios or ESPN or whatever, and we won't have to deal with any of our own technical business. I said that people should message me on Discord. I should probably check to see if anyone did. No one did. All right, well, let's see here. Edinger greater than Nedeljkovic. Called it 3 weeks ago. Jake is okay. You know what? That's what William also said, K-Towney, on my episode that I did with him, even though Nedeljkovic is looking really good right now, and I believe didn't he get a shutout? Isn't Carolina having a game? Oh, it's against Detroit, so I guess maybe it doesn't count. But yeah, another good game for Nedeljkovic. But also Ettinger's in a good spot also, just because Hudobin going into the year, everyone was super high on him, and we've talked about this on the show. But it's never happened that Hudobin's been able to be a reliable starting goalie in the league, and we're seeing this year that it's just not. It's not his bag. It doesn't seem like, and that's fine, right? He's had a great career. He made to that cup finals, had that great run, and he's had some great save percentages on Dallas. But I think that it makes sense that he's going to at least go 50-50 for the rest of the season with Ettinger until Bishop comes back, of course. And maybe Ettinger could steal the job the way he's been playing lately. So it's a 2-1 win for Dallas in the shootout. Yeah, goalies. It's changing all the time. Finally, people are starting to drop John Gibson in leagues all over the place. Adam saying Pearson is better than Ettinger and Nedeljkovic. Okay, but when you're saying now, are we talking about general goalie quality or dynasty value? Or are we talking about this year? Because right now, I don't know if I would want Pearson ahead of Ettinger and Nedeljkovic. I guess we don't know the Jonathan Quick injury timeline yet, but Pearson wasn't the greatest stream today. If you grabbed him, they just lost to Colorado, which is, I guess, not surprising. Pearson actually did stop 37 of 40 shots, so I guess it's not his fault for the loss. But Colorado, hot take here. Colorado's a pretty good team, and looks like Nazem Kadri had that really good goal. I saw a replay of that. All right, who else? I need some discussion topics here. Saros is the goalie to pick up right now. Carolina, Florida, Tampa Bay have huge leads in that division. Other teams can't score. Okay. Oh. Look at this. We're going to talk about Saros on the show today, actually. Josh is okay. That's why we had to wait, because we needed Josh to come in and say best fantasy hockey podcast. Thank you so much, Josh.
I'm glad that was actually, I was just delaying. I didn't want to say why, but that's exactly what I was waiting for.
So Brian, I think you might not be on the right microphone.
Yeah. I'll get it all set up.
You could just verify that. I didn't stop my recording yet, so I will do that. Now everyone's going to see our pre-show getting all the recordings started that I've okay.
You try to keep hidden.
So with this Zoom call now, if I stop the recording and then start it again, I don't even know what it's going to do. Oh man, this whole thing, I'm not exactly sure what it's going to do. Maybe I shouldn't have stopped. What's the problem? Because
what did you do?
When I did, well, the Zoom is a backup anyway, so it actually doesn't matter. Okay, don't worry about that. Don't even worry about that, Brian.
I'm not I try not to worry, but you're worrying me.
Okay, so I'm stopping this recording. All right, so are you ready to start all the recordings again, or are you still setting things up?
I am all set up. Here we go. All
right, K-Towney says Saros, Bernier, Ettinger. Bernier, well, sometimes.
Had a good game today.
It's risky, right? Bernier clearly has shown he can be good, but there's if you have a Nedeljkovic or an Ettinger, I think it's less likely that you're going to get blown up 6-1.
Yeah, but Bernier, guess what? Just throw me a guess at what his quality start percentage is this year.
60.
70%.
Holy moly. So it's just like basically the 1 week where you said to grab him was the week where he was bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was right.
I mean, don't say that now. You're just going to jinx him again for next week.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so let's start the recording and we can start the podcast. Are you ready now?
To start the podcast. Yeah.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, record.
Recording. And I sound good? Like I'm on the right mic?
Sounds good to me, man.
Yes.
Record this computer. Okay, everything is recording. Everything is ready to go.
Man,
this is going to be the best show we ever do. I'm excited.
I'm jacked.
We've got a fun format, I think.
I'm riled up.
I'm going to see what they're going to think. All right, let's do this.
Yes.
That's my word. Don't stop stepping on my line.
Sorry.
Yeah! Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who never get injured because we never leave our apartments. I'm your host, Debrusk, and with me, as always, the poobah of prognostication, the IPP MVP, the fantasy hockey robot himself, Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be with you once again to go over all the latest news, notes, and analysis on fantasy hockey from the week that was in the NHL. And I feel like I need to be honest here. I broke my ankle like during the pandemic at home, like getting out of my chair. It was actually really embarrassing. And I don't know why I'm sharing it with everyone here. Really just my colleagues knew, but now you all know. So please be sensitive with that information.
Okay, well, you're better now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like 90%. I don't know if I'll ever be the same again, though.
Okay, so maybe your hockey career is going to get cut short, but your podcasting career, honestly, didn't even skip a beat. I don't even think you took a show off. It's actually funny. There's another podcast I listen to, Rob and Akiva Need a Podcast, and Akiva injured himself running after a bus, just like trying to catch the bus. And I think he had a similar thing rolling his ankle. So it's dangerous. So not only do you need to stay home, you also need to like not move around briskly. Just like everyone take care of yourselves. But we're trying our best not to get injured. And it's like not so hard, but it is hard for these players in the NHL. We talked about it a bit on short shifts, or Ben and Lewis did. And now we've got more here. There's like a lot of injuries all throughout the league. So the plan for today's episode is we're going to go through each team in the league. I've brought up the list of injuries on tsn.ca/NHL/injuries. And we've got all the teams sorted by their number of injuries on this list. And we're just going to go through teams one by one and check in on the, I guess, infirmary for all of these teams. That's the plan for today's show. Before we get to it, of course, let's mention that we are presented by DobberHockey.com, the #1 fantasy hockey website in the world. And right now, you should already know this. And if you don't, get your pen out. You want to buy the Dobber Mid-Season Fantasy Hockey Guide because this is a great resource for you. Midway through the season, you've got updated projections, articles. It's like the world famous Dobber Guide, but you get a mid-season version of it with all the updates you need. So definitely check it out at dobberhockey.com. But okay, Brian, with that, are you ready to talk about injuries?
I am always and forever ready to talk about injuries other than my own. So let's go. Okay,
so let's start in Boston. They've got 8 injuries listed over here on the NHL injuries list. Most of them we don't really care about, right? Kasha's been hurt for a while. Lozon, not Keandre Miller, I guess Kevin Miller. I guess I won't read them all to you. The most significant one on this list is definitely Tuukka Rask. He's been out of the lineup since March 7th when he was injured versus New Jersey. Yaroslav Halak, in the meantime, put up a couple of gems versus the Islanders and the Rangers on Tuesday and Thursday, but then let his managers down on Saturday. He let in 4 goals on 33 shots in the 4-0 shutout loss to the Rangers. Who had that on their bingo card, right? Like the Rangers shutting out Keith Kincaid, of all people, shutting out the Bruins. The 35-year-old Halak has been a .919 save percentage or higher goalie since joining the Bruins 3 seasons ago. Currently, he's sitting at a .922 save percentage in 11 games so far this year. Rask could potentially be back next week, so this is more like a hypothetical, but I've been wondering this for a while now, Brian. Let's say what if Rask was announced to be like out for the season tomorrow? Like, how high would Halak rank in our goalie tiers? Like, I think of someone like Anton Hudobin on Dallas, who puts up such great numbers as a tandem guy or a backup, but we haven't really seen him be a starter in the league and be successful. And I get the same like vibe off of Yaroslav Halak, but I'm curious to get your take. Like in Williams' goalie tiers that he dropped on Thursday, and again, great show by William Nadeau coming on and crushing it. He had a tier 3 with like Binnington, Markstrom, Fleury, and Frederik Andersen. Would you put Halak in that tier just because if he were the starting goalie on Boston, or would you bump him down because we've never seen him have a big workload? I'm just curious to go. This guy's 35 years old. His career's probably nearing the end. Like, how good actually is he?
Yeah, it'd be really hard to keep him out of the third tier, right? Sorry, no edits from here on in. Yeah, it would be really hard to keep. Okay. Yeah, it would be really hard to keep Jaro Halak out of the third tier. By the way, keeping Karlsson.com/goalies is where everybody can load up those goalie tiers right now and look at them and judge what we're saying in real time about what you think. I guess the argument to not put Halak in tier 3 is to ask, how good is Boston actually this year? They're 4-6-2 in the last month. They're middle of the pack in a lot of ways that you want to measure a team's success. But what they still have going for them that would help Jaro Halak is that the Bruins are still a top 10 defensive team, as they have figured out a way to absorb the losses of Chara and Tory Krug on their blue line. Halak himself is playing like an average goalie at 5-on-5, but with that protection, that makes him an above average option. I guess the only argument in my mind to put him in tier 4 is because that's where Tuukka Rask was placed. And I think of them pretty similarly these days, but I guess Rask was put there because of the timeshare with Halak. And with Rask out long-term, if that does happen to be the case, Halak, I don't think would be in a similar timeshare with Dan Vladar. So I would be probably wanting to put Halak alongside guys like Binnington, Markstrom, and Andersen, knowing that maybe he's not quite as good as them, although Freddie Andersen, I might make the argument that he is, but he's got the volume ahead of the guys that you listed in tier 4, like Varlamov and Sorokin and Shesterkin, to justify having him just one tier above that group.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I definitely don't wish anything bad on Rask. I hope that he'll be back and fully healthy, but it would be interesting to see what Halak would do with a run as a starting goalie. Maybe we'll find out, but hopefully not. So also on this list is Jake Debrusk, who's on the COVID list. Of course, he's lost all fantasy relevance a while ago. Brian even refuses to discuss Jake Debrusk on the podcast anymore. Back in the day, he used to be that fourth forward on the Bruins top power play. This season, the spot has gone to Nick Ritchie, who was bumped for a couple of games this week for David Krejci, but looks like Ritchie got back there midway through Saturday's loss. So obviously go check GameDayLineTweets.com or follow at GameDayLines to check out the line combos before Monday's game if you want to get that forward on the Boston top power play. Usually the Boston beat writers are pretty good about tweeting power play practice combos, so you're able to get that information. Another guy not on the top power play recently since Matt Grishak has returned is Charlie Mcavoy, who's really quieted down quite a bit since the start of the season. He's now gone pointless in 4 games in a row. He still sits at 17 points in 25 games for a 56-point pace, which is great, but that's falling, right? He was almost at a 70-point pace at one point this year. Brian, is this like just regression hitting McAvoy after his hot start? Or like, is he maybe just going to be the 40 to 45-point guy that he was in his first 3 seasons with the Bruins? Like, I'm just curious, what are you expecting rest of the season? Are we going to go back to, like, is McAvoy underperforming right now? Is his total average of a 56-point pace what we should expect moving forward? Or has he been overperforming? We should continue to see him go quiet.
We mentioned last week how little McAvoy had made of his top power play opportunity, which is now gone. And with that power play 1 opportunity, he had 4 power play points to put him on a super hot run where he picked up 13 points in 11 games. But now McAvoy is super cold, no power play role in sight. And yeah, I don't think he's this 56-point pace player. I think I'm comfortable around, say, 45 points the rest of the way. I think McAvoy is capable of more, but Boston as a team is not going to give him that opportunity so long as Grishak is doing fine on the top power play unit. And Boston as a team might not even give McAvoy the opportunity to be really offensive because they are a defense first, second, and third team. Right now, Boston ranks 28th in the league in expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is one way that I like to get a proxy of how offensive a team is choosing to play. And usually with a team like Boston, it is a choice. Some teams it's not a choice, like they just have no offense. But Boston, it seems to be a systemic decision. Clearly, the Bruins aren't playing to score a ton of goals. Just that classic Bruins hockey of playing tight, then jumping on a mistake. And nobody other than the top line is ever really expected to score, which is limiting for any Bruin, really, especially Charlie McAvoy, who is a blue liner and not on the top power play unit. So yeah, I'd say 45 points. And honestly, I'd take the under before I take the over on his pace the rest of the season.
Oh man. So K Towney is pointing out that McAvoy got on the top power play with Ritchie in the second period on Saturday. I guess, after a shutout, things might get changed up. So again, watch the lines. But Brian, like clearly then you would have the panic meter is pretty high. Like there was a lot of people who drafted Mcavoy and probably were so stoked about his great start to the year. And at this point, you're kind of saying you think he's going to go back to being what he was last year, which was rosterable in a lot of leagues, but not this like elite defensive option that he was looking like.
And this is how you win leagues, right? Mcavoy was found money in your draft. You got him probably later than the value he provided you for the first several weeks. Now the value, in my opinion, is about to fall off. You want to sell and get rid of him before that value falls off. So you had the best of what he had to offer, and you traded him for someone who's going to outperform him the rest of the season. So that's what I would be looking to do if I were a Mcavoy manager.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring up some other defensemen who have gone cold, and we'll see which ones you like better between Mcavoy and those guys. Obviously, don't sell too crazy. And unfortunately, now's a tough time to sell since he's pointless in 4 games. Like I said, maybe wait for him to get a point in his next game and then see what you can do. Or maybe just hold on because it's a short season remaining and you don't want to rip yourself off trying to overthink things. Okay, let's go to Nashville now. They also have 8 injuries listed on this TSN list. And that list has grown recently, unfortunately, with Roman Josi, Ryan Ellis, and Matt Duchene moved to the IR recently. On the plus side, UC Saros is also on that list, but he could be back soon. I'm reading that he might be back even in the next game or two, which would be good timing since Pekka Rinne has put up a couple 5-goal against stinkers recently versus Carolina and Tampa. But Brian, I got to ask you, like, as much as William likes UC Saros, should we have any faith in him being able to repeat last year's run on this depleted team?
Sorry, there it is.
You were in the chat?
No. I was looking over my notes and sorry. Okay. I was really expecting to not be any, I was really expecting to not have any interest in UC Saros as I dug into his numbers, but I, spoiler alert, am kind of interested in UC Saros once he's back in the lineup because Nashville, as usual, still has their defense working for them. Like a lot of things are going wrong, but their defensive game is still pretty solid, which works in UC Saros' favor. Nashville ranks 7th in expected goals against per 60 minutes, which is 1 rank ahead of Boston, who I just lauded for their defense. And Saros' 5-on-5 game this season looks pretty decent too. Nothing super special, but certainly respectable. Like he's at least playing as well as an average goalie should, given his workload. The silver lining for any Saros hopefuls who are feeling disturbed or discouraged by his stat line so far is that Saros has just been dreadful on the penalty kill. Like worse to a greater extent than Philip Grubauer has been good on the penalty kill, which we chatted about on the last week's episode, saying, it's concerning that Grubauer is playing so well on the penalty kill, and that's where he's building his save percentage out. Saros doing the opposite. He is expected, based on his workload so far, to have put up a 905 on the penalty kill. Right now, he's pitching an 819 Fenwick save percentage. He ranks 47th out of 47 goalies who face at least 50 unblocked shot attempts while shorthanded. And I say all this as a plus for Saros because, as we always mention, penalty kill save percentage is something that can vary and fluctuate wildly through the season. So if we just accept that what Saros has done on the penalty kill is not representative of his true skill or what's going to happen, that it still can fluctuate wildly, which honestly, I think it will. And we just focus on his solid numbers at 5-on-5 behind a very solid defensive team. He kind of becomes an appealing option. He might not get a whole lot of run support or get you many wins, but UC Saros could at least get you some okay rates.
I mean, my question though, Brian, and everything you said is really smart, but like all these numbers that you're talking about are from a team that he was playing on that had Roman Josi and Ryan Ellis on defense. As Shams is saying in the chat here, how can he play well with no D left on the team? That's my main concern. It's like, I would have kind of been into him, but now I'm just wondering if maybe this is a team that's going to blow up because they haven't looked good recently, right? And I guess you could blame that on Pekka Rinne, but you could also blame it on the team not having good defense anymore.
So I'm interested, right? I of course want to see in Shams. That's a fantastic point to really emphasize that I did sort of glaze over, that we should be looking out for Josi and Ellis out of the lineup and seeing how Nashville adjusts. I guess I have this innate trust in the system that they play in. Like John Hines has like sort of run this for a little while. And I don't know, like, I guess they are pulling pretty deep from their depth chart with their top 2 defensemen out, essentially the 2 first pair guys. So it's going to be a little harder for Nashville to play defense, but I would still be interested in Saros as a guy. Like if you're looking for someone who can get you decent volume and okay rates, might still have a shot at doing that. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not as down on him as I thought I would be, which is reason for me to give him at least a look with fresh eyes once he's back from this injury.
Yeah, okay. And then let's look at the lines in Saturday's 6-3 loss to Tampa with all these people out of the lineup. So you got Forsberg, Johansson, Arvidsson, the band's back together there on that top line. And then Granlund with Tolvanen and Kalle Järnkrok. Here's a fun exercise for the listener. Try to name the other 6 forwards or any of them. I'm not going to bore you with... Brian, do you know any? Can you name one of the other 6 forwards on this team?
I definitely know that Rocco Grimaldi plays in Nashville. And I actually cheated. Like I looked because we prepped together. So I cheated and looked. I'm like, Luke Kunin. And then I think he was traded, right? For Eric Holla.
Okay, you don't have this exactly right. But Luke Kunin, unfortunately, is also on the IR list.
He's just injured. Okay, he's still there. And then I knew Nick Cousins and Colton Sissons because their names kind of sound alike. And they've been in Nashville a long time. But those are all very, very deep cuts for even like a middle 6.
Yeah, it's tough. Howla's there, so that's true, and he got a goal recently. Anyway, then on defense, right? Obviously, people are curious to know with Roman Josi and Ryan Ellis out, who's like on the top power play, if that's worth anything with this team being so depleted. So Mattias Ekholm finally he wasn't there right away, but he was there in Josi and Ellis's absence on Saturday. No points, only 1 shot. He in fact only has 1 assist in 5 games since he went on that hot run in early March. So he's really cooled off. At this point, Brian, I think a lot of people rush. Like I know Ben from Short Shifts, he grabbed Ellis when he was on that hot run and he got another 1 goal, 1 assist game right after he added him. He was super excited about him. Now that he's gone cold, what do you do with him? Because on one hand, he's gone cold and he's, Mattias Ekholm, he's not someone who's generally someone you could depend on for a lot of points, but he's getting better deployment with all the other defensemen out. So he's someone that you would hold on to at this point, even through a cold streak, or do you stream him out just like you would have otherwise?
If it weren't for those other injuries, I'd say if you wouldn't normally roster Mattias Ekholm, there's no reason to roster him now because of that hot run he had earlier in the season. Every year, it seems like Mattias Ekholm gets super, super hot at least once or twice a season, and then he cools right back down to his usual 35-point pace where you can't rely on any kind of consistent production from him. But he's on the top power play. He's essentially the last man standing out of that top D group in Nashville. So yeah, I'll keep him on my roster. I'd be okay to expect somewhere above 40 points with Ekholm's power play deployment, but just remember that Nashville power play is deeply plagued and has been for a few years, except, we're going to talk about Eeli Tolvanen in a second. So just keep your expectations tempered. You're not just getting like a power play quarterback who's just going to cash in guaranteed. Now you're getting a power play quarterback on a long struggling power play. So I wouldn't keep my expectations too high for Ekholm, especially because at 5-on-5, he's never been a big producer there either.
Yeah, and I guess, so we could bring up Tolvanen, who's also on that top power play, and he was on a hot run. He's now pointless in 2 games. You know what? I know that the narrative has been oh, he came on the top power play, and all of a sudden it turned on. So it was clearly Tolvanen. But I'm assuming Roman Josi probably helped at least a little bit, and having him out can't be great for Tolvanen being in that spot. So at this point, now that he's gone cold, are you holding on for the same reason as Ekholm?
Yeah, maybe. It depends on how deep your league is. Tolvanen seemed to single-handedly solve Nashville's 3-year-long power play problem, which was amazing. He's got this really great shot that he was being encouraged to use. And then I look at his last 3 games. Tolvanen has had exactly 1 shot on goal in his last 3 games. And those games included about 9 minutes of power play time, mostly with the top unit. So I don't understand why the shots dried up, especially if he was the secret key that unlocked this long-suffering power play. I wonder if other teams started keying in on him really quick and preventing whatever passing lanes got there. And so if Nashville needs to work around that, or is actually, no, you're not going to be the trigger man. I think you could probably let go of Tolvanen for now, but I still think he's got a shot at being rosterable with that top power play role, kind of I hate to say this, but kind of like an Alex Chiasson, who has that top power play deployment, and you can't depend on him for really anything except hopefully a power play point here and there. I would hope Tolvanen plays a more meaningful role on the Nashville power play, but for now, he's still on it, but he's just not shooting The good news, if you're in a bangers league, is that if you want to hold Tolvanen, if he's not putting up points for you, he hits nearly 2 hits a game on average. And we'll see if that number climbs even just another little bit as Tolvanen's time on ice on the whole continues to rise too.
Okay, so you're giving some reasons to maybe hold. I think to me, he's a clear streamer. Like he's available in a couple of my leagues, and I don't know. Right now, I'm not too excited, even though I know he had that good run before. Okay, let's go to Chicago now. They've got 7 injuries on this list of injured players. Of course, some of them we know very well. Jonathan Toews has been there forever. Dylan Strome has been there a long time. Brent Seabrook actually just announced his retirement, so he's still on this list. I don't know if he should be there anymore, but happy sailing Brent Seabrook. Alex Nylander is someone who was supposed to be on this team this year. So man, like Chicago hasn't even been that bad this year. Imagine how good they would have been if they had all these guys. And actually one guy I haven't mentioned yet that's also on the list is Kirby Dach, who was supposed to potentially take over or at least jump into the top 6 as a high impact center on the team. And currently he's skating with the team a little ahead of schedule in recovery from his wrist surgery. Brian, I saw that you added and stashed him on your Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League team. I'd imagine you'd recommend others do the same. Like hard not to salivate at the possibility of him taking that spot, centering the top line with Kane and DeBrincat. Like Pia Suter has been there. Kurashev, I guess, has been there recently. No guarantees, but the competition isn't that strong. So Kirby Dach, if he does come back this season, he'd be walking into potentially a really good position.
3 words for Kirby Dach: add and stash. Absolutely. On one hand, Suter and Kurashev haven't produced a ton with their present primo deploymento. On the other hand, Kane and DeBrincat are still doing incredible, though. So maybe Dach goes to work with Kubalik instead, since clearly Kane and DeBrincat don't need the help, but Dach should also be a lock for top power play duties ahead of Carl Soderberg. So he's going to be in a position to put up points. Be nice if he got to play with Kane and DeBrincat. The opportunity might or might not be there, but either way, I still think he's definitely stashable. I mean, why not? If it's going to cost you very little, which it did me in the Cupful, then I don't see any argument to not just put him in your IR and wait to see how his first couple games back go when he does come back, which is hopefully, I don't know, I guess at this point it might just be in time for your fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, so it could be a pretty sweet upgrade, potentially, kind of like all these people like myself who drafted Tyler Seguin, hoping that he'd come back at some point this season. Now it looks like Kirby Dach could maybe come back around the same time as Seguin. So not nothing, and potentially a high upside there. Okay, Colorado has 7 injuries on this list. Hasn't affected them much. Like Pavel Francouz has been gone all season. Would have been interesting to see how he would do. Brian, our debate about Grubauer made it onto our Clipping Karlsson show, which dropped a couple of days ago. By the way, if people enjoyed that, if you didn't see it, we dropped an episode that we're thinking of doing every Saturday of just like kind of a quick recap of the week. Julian Paquette put it together, just some clips from all the different shows from around the Keeping Karlsson network with some of our best clips and takes. And I thought it was a really fun first episode. So we'd love your feedback on if you like having this in your feed. So tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson or let us know in the Discord. Either way, right? If you like it or if you don't like it, but I think Julian did a great job. But anyways, all that to say, our debate about Philip Grubauer was on there because you brought up how he's not maybe doing as well as it seems from his raw numbers. And in the end of the day, though, he's the starting goalie on this great team. So he had another easy win today against LA, and I'm sure that will continue regardless of how good he actually is. Eric Johnson is still on this list. Actually, a lot of D on this list, right? Eric Johnson, Cale Makar, and Bowen Byram all injured currently. Makar apparently is going to potentially come back later this week, but we've been hearing that for a while, so I'll believe it when I see it. We already drooled over Sam Girard last week, and he has 4 points in his last 4 games. That was going into today, so I'm sure his managers wouldn't mind if Makar took his time in coming back, because clearly things are going well right now for Girard, so why mess with that? I still can't believe, Brian, the Avalanche got Girard, Bowen Byram plus for Matt Duchene. That trade, like, they should build a statue of Joe Sakic just for that trade. Like, he had a great playing career, sure, but I think his defining career moment as a hockey person is that trade with Nashville and Ottawa. It's insane.
Before I answer, you skipped Bocus.
Oh no. All right. Well, at this point, I don't want to go back. So just like answer that and then be like, hey, and also let me bring up another person on Chicago.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that like, I love, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Stanley Cup, Schmanley Cup. If you just win a trade, that's statue worthy. Forget about all he did bringing cups to Colorado in his playing career. But no, I totally see what you're saying and agree with you. Honestly, I thought talking about Colorado, you might take this opportunity to feel really good about Ryan Graves being on your team. He had a super weird stat line this week. 2 games where he had 1 assist each, but no shots on goal. And in the third game, he had 6 shots on goal and no points. And to get even weirder, Ryan Graves had just 1 hit and 4 blocks over 3 games too. So a very, very, very odd stat line for anyone. And also for Ryan Graves specifically. Are you still going to hold him, Elon, going into this next week?
Yeah, so in the cupful, you get like 0.5 for a block and 0.5 for a shot. And like, like little by little, he's contributing. No matter, some days, like you say, he gives me an assist. Some days he gives me all the peripherals. In the end, he's giving me like 3.5 plus a couple points game in, game out, which makes him, I think, better than the best replacement defenseman in free agency. So yeah, if you're in a bangers league, you might not get all of those category stats in like one day, but over a week, I think Graves is filling your stat sheet, except for goals, I guess, though you'd expect some goals to potentially even come if he has like another 6-shot game. So yeah, he's tough to drop right now. Colorado only plays Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week, so not the best schedule, but I think I'm probably holding on. Brian, by the way, speaking of defensemen, I skipped over this in Chicago. I mentioned Brent Seabrook and his retirement. One guy that has taken over recently as the new hotness on defense, and I guess there's been a couple people in between, but Adam Bocus is really crushing it for the Blackhawks lately. He scored on Saturday in the 4-2 loss to Florida, which brings him to 10 points in his last 11 games. What? Where did this come from? Now he's been a fixture on the top power play for a long time. He's got 10 points in his last 11 games. Is there any reason why people shouldn't be rushing to grab him if he's still available? Like we talked about Charlie McAvoy struggling before. Would it be crazy to drop McAvoy for Bocus? Like hopefully you could just fit both on your roster. But I'm just curious to get a heat check on Adam Bocus at this point.
It's a really exciting time for Adam Bocus, the former 8th overall draft pick from the 2018 draft, drafted by Chicago, finally showing some of that offensive upside that we've been waiting for. We had eyes on Bocus last year and did nothing while we were watching, but now suddenly Bocus is on this 59-point full season pace. Who knew that had happened, right? Unless you were watching really closely, which thankfully we are. We're going to tell you about it. But Adam Bocus pacing for 59 points in a full 82-game season. And that power play performance that he's on right now is all the difference to his numbers. I actually asked on Twitter if anybody had seen more of his power play work, because I haven't seen a ton of Chicago games this year. And Sebastian Boyer wrote back, and he said they swing around 3 guys at the top, and Bocus often ends up opposite of Kane looking for the backdoor shot, and that he also has a good shot from the top, which is all well and good. That's great that Bocus is being set up to finish and shoot, except he's barely finishing or shooting on the power play. He's just piling up these secondary assists. He's got 8 power play points already in 18 games. Lots of those coming in the form of secondary assists. And by the way, compare that with 2 power play points in 41 games for Bocus last year. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep all of it up. Elon, he's got a 75% point participation rate right now, a 20% on-ice shooting percentage on the power play. Both those numbers are likely to regress some, but I think Bocus is absolutely worth rostering. Even when he cools from what he's doing right now, Bocus could still be a 45-point guy, which puts him very close to Charlie McAvoy territory. So I guess I'd look at peripherals and see exactly what else is being counted in your league. But if I had to pick points only rest of season between Bocus and McAvoy, I'm going Bocus.
Damn, wow. So I think it's a bit of a strong statement, but I can't argue with it, right? Like, especially recently, Bocus has been the hot one. And, by the way, there's only 4 weeks left in the Cupful season before we're in the playoffs. Like, this season is quickly winding down, so you don't have time to wait on cold streaks, right? If you can make a swap for a hot player, it's really hard to not be tempted to just do that. Okay, we're talking about injuries for this whole episode, so let's go now to St. Louis, who also has 7 injuries on this list, just like Chicago and Colorado. I don't know. We haven't even really talked about it on the show, but Jaden Schwartz has been out for quite a while, which I guess isn't a surprise. And I feel bad for Jaden Schwartz. He's had a really tough career with these injuries, but right now he's day to day, so maybe he'll be back at some point soon. Colton Parayko is on the shelf currently. Parayko is someone who hasn't had a big power play role on the team. One player who has had a big power play role on the team is Tory Krug, who, like McAvoy, pointless in 4 games now. Before that, he was on a nice run. So I'd imagine you're going to say not to be too concerned, but I got to bring him up. Tory Krug, should we be panicking about Krug and this current cold stretch?
I don't think so. The Blues power play is doing fine, so I don't think St. Louis cares much whether Tory Krug is personally getting points on their power play goals over Krug's pointless 4 games. The Blues are 4 out of 13 with the man advantage, so why mess with that?
Yeah, so I think I agree with you. I don't think that his power play role is at risk, but maybe he's just not. It's definitely not as good as that Boston power play role. It just seemed like such a great spot for him.
He and those that Boston top unit was a match made in heaven for Tory Krug and the forward group that was on it too. We obviously haven't seen the same chemistry follow Krug to St. Louis or reappear with Grishlik or McAvoy in Boston. So I just feel like that's lost fantasy value that we'll never see recouped anywhere else again. And I still hope though that Krug is still like a legit rosterable power play quarterback for several years to come. He's still really talented. Just going to take a lot. It would take a lot to recreate that magic that he had going in Boston. I just don't know that it's going to happen in St. Louis the way things are going.
Yeah, well, one new thing, which so far hasn't worked out for Krug, but it's still something that maybe they're working on, is Vladimir Tarasenko is back, right? So he's not on this injured list anymore. We talked about his return last week. Since then, he's doing pretty well. He's got 4 points in 4 games, 5 shots in the loss to Vegas yesterday. So, man, Brian, I really wish I drafted Tarasenko instead of Sagan. I stashed the wrong guy in my auction draft. But anyways, I guess let's take a quick look at the lines, though I will say that after a 5-1 loss, you'd expect that things might change. So I don't know if you're rushing to grab anyone, but Tarasenko was on a line with Shen and Sammy Blais, and then Ryan O'Reilly was with David Perron and Zach Sanford. So you've got Sammy Blais and Zach Sanford potentially being good streamers if they're going to be on the top 6 with these great players. So you could check out Game Day Lines. Again, that's where I'm always looking, and also creating the tweets. Not creating the tweets, I guess retweeting the tweets and creating the content on Game Day Lines. And I'll be watching St. Louis, and maybe in a deeper league, I'm looking at Blais or Sanford. But, Sanford had a good run before, so he'd be the one I'd jump on first. Let's go to Buffalo now. They've got 6 injuries on this list. Technically, that's fewer than some of the other teams we've talked about, but I definitely think that they're the ones who have suffered the most, especially now with Jack Eichel out for the foreseeable future with his neck injury. That's a quote from the coaching staff and management in Buffalo. So foreseeable future doesn't sound good with not that much season left. Then Dylan Cousins took over on the top line with Hall and Reinhart, but promptly got injured himself. Keep in mind, Linus Ullmark is also still weeks away from returning. So this team was already kind of a mess, and now they're just completely off the rails. I can tell you some lines from the 3-0 loss to Pittsburgh on Saturday, but I feel like it doesn't matter. They're probably going to shake things up. And even if they do or don't shake things up, maybe this team just won't score a goal for the rest of the season, right? So they ran with Hall, Reinhart, and Riley Sheehan as a top line center, and then Stahl, Tobias Reeder, and Victor Olofsson as the second line. The top power play was Hall, Reinhart. Casey Middlestat was there. And then Olofsson and Dahlin. So Ristolainen had jumped on the top power play. I guess Middlestat bumped in. But again, that could all change because they did nothing in that game against Pittsburgh on Saturday. At this point, are we I don't want to recommend people grab Casey Middlestat because he's on the top power play, or grab Riley Sheehan because he's playing with Hall. I'm wondering if Hall, I should still be holding him in Cupful. I'm regretting a couple of weeks ago, I asked you after the show, I was like, oh, Dave Benton offered me, Rupe Hintz and Andre Palat for Hall. And you're kind of like, no, come on, don't do that. I wish I did that. Palat is crushing it. Hall's continued to do nothing. So I think the big answer here is just don't grab anyone in free agency on Buffalo if they're out there, because, well, that's my opinion. I'm curious to know if you agree or disagree.
That is my opinion too. I mean, if Jack Eichel couldn't do much as a top line center in Buffalo, who can? Actually, while I'm talking about Eichel, let me just nix a misconception here about Eichel's season being god-awful. Everyone is piling on Eichel for not scoring fair. We want to see goals from him. But you see that Eichel had 16 assists in 21 games, right? That was tracking for a career-high 62 full season assist pace. Imagine if Eichel had a fully functional team with him, that scored at all, and how well he could be doing there. So I don't know. I just feel like the way, if I didn't look up Eichel's numbers and I just listened to the way that people were talking about him, I would just think that he was a half point per game player and being such a huge disappointment. But there were some bright sides. But again, it still wasn't that bright in terms of what we expect from Jack Eichel. And if Jack Eichel can only do so much It's a top line center in Buffalo. I don't expect Riley Sheahan or Casey Middlestat or anyone else to do a whole lot better. Sheahan has played one game in that 1C role. He had one shot and no top power play time. I don't think he's capable of playing this role. Like, we've never seen him produce. Like, he's not even a guy. I think maybe in the time we've done Keeping Karlsson, he's had one hot streak and he's been around forever. Right. So I am with you, Elon, that I'm not looking at any Sabres. It would be like the same way. We're not saying go add Philip Khrushchev in Chicago or Pius Suter, even though they're in a great spot and the guys around them are actually scoring. They still don't seem like long-term rosterable guys. Even Eric Stahl, if you were going to go up and play with Taylor Hall and Sam Reinhart, I still wouldn't be sure I'd even want him. So I'm not sure anyone really becomes valuable in Buffalo with Eichel out, and it's just bad news all around.
Yeah. So you just said how the vibe about Eichel is that he's not doing really well, even though actually he is. Can you do the same with Hall now? Can you reassure me that Hall is actually really good and I just haven't noticed?
Well, so what was the deal? Rupe Hintz?
Okay, don't worry. And Palat. I forget about Hintz.
Yeah.
Whatever. We'll get to Hintz. He's injured all the time, but Palat is much better than Taylor Hall. I should have done it.
Well, we'll talk about Palat soon. And I don't know. Like, I actually am curious if that deal's still on the table.
Dave, message me. I'll do it, I think.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Palat in a bit. I mean, Hall's on this 50-point regular season pace, which is not good. Eichel was still on a 70-point full season pace, which is defensible, whereas the 50-point pace is not.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to happier thoughts. We've got a lot of teams to get to. It's actually not going to be like so happy because we're going through injuries all throughout this episode. Then we're talking about some outjuries along the way. But Brian, before we get to that, let's thank a couple of sponsors of Keeping Karlsson. Okay, so that's the first one. And then how about you could go in and do the next one now?
Okay. Does it matter which one's first?
Well, I don't know. This is like a good spot for an ad break. And then you could just say Keeping Karlsson's also sponsored by blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Or not, maybe not also because, I don't know, up to you. What do you want to do? Just whatever you think you want to do. There's might not be a like loaded in ad,
yeah, so
right?
why don't I go first?
Okay, sure.
And then maybe there's another ad.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. All right. Yes. As you might have noticed on your calendars, March is here and the madness has officially begun. It's time for you to shoot your shot and score big on the nonstop action going on with our sponsor, MyBookie. Select the winners from 63 tournament games in the MyBookie bracket contest for a chance at $10,000 in cash prizes. And it's just $1 to enter. It doesn't matter whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting the national championship winner, or simply looking for player and game props. MyBookie has you covered. You can sign up today at mybookie.ag and use the promo code Karlsson, like the second word of our show name, to secure a deposit bonus up to $1,000. And make sure you use our promo code so they know that we hooked you up and you can support the show and say, hey, it works to sponsor Keeping Karlsson. That's promo code Karlsson to claim your first deposit bonus. If you're to claim your first deposit bonus. NHL, NBA, college ball, no matter the sport, no matter the minute, MyBookie puts the action in your hands with in-game live betting. And with choice from thousands of lines and odds, you can turn game day into payday. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And also head on over to check out the tools for responsible gambling over at responsibleGambling.org. One tip includes setting a limit and staying within it.
Okay, and definitely. Oh, yeah. So then it's cutting to another ad. Okay, thanks, Brian. And yeah, my tip for MyBookie is do not bet on the Buffalo Sabres anytime soon. I do not think that's going to work out for you. Okay, we're going to be back in a second for more Keeping Karlsson.
Why don't you? I guess you want to give that personal touch.
Yeah.
Okay. Because like there might be no ad.
Yeah. So we'll be back in a sec. Now we're back.
That's how I always talk to my friends. I finish a sentence and I say I'll be back in a second, and
like purred happily from Parks and Rec.
The word purred.
Okay, we are back, Brian. A lot more teams to get to. We've gone through 6. We're going through them all, looking at the injuries. Edmonton has 6 names on the list of injured players. No huge names, though, there, aside from Oscar Klefbom. Some Perif guys and Cashin, Chris Russell that may have been rostered in some categories leagues. Though the new Perif's monster in town has been Jujhar Khaira, who had a measly, quote-unquote, 2 hits in the 2-1 loss to Vancouver yesterday after putting up 5, 6, 8, and even a 12-hit game versus Toronto recently. He's also been taking faceoffs lately. I didn't even know Jujhar Khaira could take faceoffs. He had 11 combined PIMs in the 3 games versus Ottawa. So when you're multi-category leagues, you may want to take a look at Jujhar Khaira. Just don't expect any points. Do you want to talk about him at all, or should I just continue? You're muted.
No, I have a couple things to say about him.
Okay, go.
Did you even throw to me? Okay, that's fine.
I didn't, but you could just go.
I'll just go. Elon, you didn't even mention Khaira's career high 31-point pace too, which is really special. It's a crazy season for him, right? He's averaging fewer than 10 minutes a night at 5-on-5, which is like extremely fourth line deployment and actually a career low for Khaira. But he is taking his anger out on everything and everyone that moves on the ice. Khaira is pacing for 23 hits per 60 minutes. He's hitting it twice his career rate. He leads the NHL in hits per 60. Whatever, man. Like if you're looking for hits, you can do worse than going to just throw Jujhar Khaira on your roster and seeing how much longer he is just throwing his body at everything in sight.
Okay, now let's go to Anaheim. 5 injuries here, and a couple of them are defensive, right? Hampus Lindholm was out. Josh Manson has been out for a long time, and I wonder if that's part of the reason why John Gibson has continued to make his fantasy managers want to drop him. Maybe they would have wished that he would have gone day to day at some point so they could have put him in their IR and not sustained all of these 5 goals against games. 3 straight 5 goals against games in a row now for John Gibson. He looked super dejected after that LeBanc goal on Friday before he got pulled. He only has 2 quality starts in his last 13 games. Last time he hasn't let in 3 or more goals was way back over a month ago on February 11th when he shut out the Golden Knights. It's hard to even imagine that happening now, but this did happen on February 11th. John Gibson shut out the Golden Knights. Since then, he's been terrible. I mean, we've talked a lot about goalies recently, so I don't know how much there is to say, except like if I had him, I wouldn't anymore. I would drop him. And Brian, I see you just recently did the same.
Yeah, I finally dropped Gibson to stream in Alex Nedeljkovic's start today, which went very well for me against Detroit. So I'm very happy with that. I feel liberated finally letting go of Gibson. I mean, Elon, you can call him a snoozer, and he was legit on my roster because I was literally snoozing through Gibson's game on Friday night, and I didn't wake up in time to make a move. That's the only reason Gibson even lasted till the end of Saturday on my Cupful roster. I guess if anyone who's still holding Gibson and is looking for hope, first off, stop looking for hope. Like there is.
Yeah, just we're done.
You can let him go. I was just going to say that his numbers are almost like Saros in that he's doing okay at 5-on-5, but he's doing terrible shorthanded. Like I have hate watched the Ducks box scores every night for the last month. And it's like, I've noticed an inordinate number of goals scored on John Gibson are power play goals against. And yeah, he looks okay at 5-on-5, but that high shot volume that we got used to seeing in Anaheim that he could beef up his save percentage with, even if he did give up power play goals against, that it's not there anymore. So more shots on goal. I mean, I guess on one hand, you could say that would be good for Gibson. On the other hand, he really sucks so far. So that might just also mean more goals against. So you're right, Elon. I could have stopped this 20 seconds ago and just said, you are free. Everyone has permission to go ahead and drop John Gibson. I'm still he's on my watch list. I'm still going to keep an eye out. I still think he's a very good goalie. It's just not going right for him this year.
Yeah, maybe when Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson are back. I don't know. Brian, you mentioned that people might be snoozing on Gibson. I feel like he's more than snoozing. It's like we need a term for when you're snoozing on an uncomfortable bed with no lumbar support, and then you wake up the next morning, you've got a sore neck and a crick in your back. That's what you're doing if you still have John Gibson.
That is what happened to me. I fell asleep on the couch.
And how was your neck the next day?
It was awful.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Brian. Oh, man, you mentioned your injury at the start of the show of your ankle. Now your neck. Take care of yourself, please.
I actually just meant figuratively awful.
Oh, okay. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Though I'm sorry for your loss with Gibson and him ruining your stats. Okay, let's go to Dallas now. They've got 5 injuries on the list, but one name no longer on the list is Alex Rajalov, who has been practicing and returned today in the game against Columbus. Let's check that stat line here. No goals, no assists, but 5 shots on goal. So I'm happy to see that. That means Rajalov's obviously been super involved. I can check the lines really quickly over on Frozen Tools, and I see Rajalov played the most minutes on his line with Rupe Hintz. Oh, Rupe Hintz actually played. And Jason Robertson, he was also getting some power play time. So yeah, Rajalov is back, and you're definitely going to want to get him back on your rosters. I mean, let's not go crazy. He did have that down year last year, but if he's the kind of guy that you drafted, you're definitely happy to have him back. And you got to love seeing 5 shots on goal. Brian, what is with this Rupe Hintz thing, by the way? He's been a game time decision every single game. Like in a league like the Cupful, where we only do free agent ads once a night, it's must be really frustrating to roster him because you don't know whether he's going to play or not until like a minute before. I've never seen anything like this before. And like, what do you do with this guy? Like, it's tough to drop him. He had a goal in 3 straight games going into today, along with a couple of apples in that stretch. Like, he's been super hot when he plays, but that stretch of 3 games also included 2 games where he was late scratched. So what do you do? I don't even know. I don't even have any advice here. Like, I guess you hold him, but he's kind of hurting you because randomly in the last minute. And what if you're just not available in that moment to like swap him out for someone on your bench? You end up like wasting a roster spot.
It's so hard to know what to do with Rupe Hintz. It's definitely hard to drop a guy scoring at a 77-point pace, even if you know, Elon, that I'm going to tell you it's not going to sustain that way because...
Well, of course, because he's on Dallas, and you have a policy where anytime I bring up anyone on Dallas, you say how they're bad. And by the way, Joe Pavelski scored a goal today, but on the 4th line, so I don't know. Who knows with this Dallas team?
So the first reason that it's not going to sustain is that Dallas power play. I always say this. Anybody who's really... like all these inflated point totals on Dallas are because that power play was just wild, and that power play has already slowed down. The other reason that Rupe Hintz's production might not be sustainable is that he has 5 points in his last 3 games. In those 5 points, 3 goals on 7 shots. He's shooting 20% on the season with 7 goals on 35 shots on goal. Like, I don't like Rupe Hintz. I've had him on my fantasy team before. It didn't turn out well for me. I believe largely in his talent, but as you said, you know exactly how I feel about anyone in Dallas, and Hintz is currently in Dallas. So maybe this is a hot take, but if Hintz is costing you critical games played, I would look past the 77-point pace and just cut bait and take the chance on Hintz not being worth rostering for the whole season. If he were on my team, and I didn't know who my streaming spot was, it would be Rupe Hintz, and I wouldn't feel bad about it.
Wow. Okay. Or at least maybe you could just stash him in IR next time he goes on day-to-day like he often does, instead of just dropping him outright and maybe try to trade him. I don't know, but clearly he has a lingering injury and he's going to be in and out of the lineup continuously the rest of the way. Like, I don't see anything changing. So it's rough. And Brian saying he doesn't even like his numbers as being sustainable. So that maybe helps you try to solve this problem a little bit. Okay, LA just had an injury with Iafallo. He was on the list with an illness, but he came back today. But then Brown was injured. So Dustin Brown was out, which meant that Adrian Kempe got to go on the top line in both of LA's last couple of games, taking each of their places to play with Kopitar. But unfortunately, Kempe hasn't gotten a point in either of those games. Previously, he had 6 goals in 3 games. He was like the stream of the week early on, including a hat trick. So Kempe has been awesome. And guess what, Brian? LA next week, once again, has the Streamagami. They're playing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I don't have the music ready to cue. You'll have to listen to the stream scheme to hear the Streamagami music, but he has a really good schedule. You don't see that too often, like a team playing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, 2 weeks in a row. So anyone who grabbed Kempe, I know that now he's cold for 2 games, but I'd imagine you got to just hold on to him because he has that good schedule. He might be playing on the top line. He's been on the top power play this whole time. And he's clearly shown that he's the type of player that can go off and give you a big night. And I think that's like something, it's a underrated like quality in someone you stream in. There's like some players who like whatever have a certain point pace, a 40-point pace. Like, yeah, you could grab this guy like Jesper Bratt might give you a goal, might give you an assist. But like, there's not many guys who like you think like this guy could give me a hat trick. Like, it's not likely, but it could happen. And Kempe's done it a couple times already this year. So you never know. Maybe it could happen again.
Kempe definitely working himself into the Frank Vitrano tier of streamers that way as someone, yeah, you can add in and he could totally change your week. which would be great. And with his schedule coming up, absolutely be interested. Just know that one thing we really liked about him at the start of the season was how often he took shots on net. In the 2 games that he scored 5 goals, he had 12 shots, which is fantastic. I'm not even gonna ding him for his shooting percentage. If you take 6 shots a night, you score on half of them. Go ahead. I'm not going to complain or say it's unsustainable because you're still taking 6 shots a night. But all the games around that, he his shot rates really have tapered off since a kind of exciting start to the season, but he still kind of takes these big shot games in bursts. So still absolutely worth the stream. But you know me, I've at least got to provide one tiny counterpoint, but I would definitely hold Kempe for next week. He's also been on the top power play. And I'll throw out another player in LA who might not be rostered right now with their great schedule coming up. Gabe Velardi, we've mentioned him on the show before. He's more like that 40-point guy streamer who may or may not do anything for you, like that Jesper Bratt. Not a lot of points for Velardi, but he has points in every other game for the last month. So that makes him a good deep league option, someone to watch who I think also has the potential to keep on improving as the year moves on. So just someone to keep an eye on if you're looking for a deep stream with a good schedule this week.
Yeah, and plus in your dynasty leagues, looks like this guy could be someone with a lot of upside moving forward. By the way, we also still don't know the status of Jonathan Quick. I haven't seen an update since like Thursday. So Cal Peterson went on the COVID list, came off the COVID list. So now it looks like we might be getting a lot of Cal Peterson starts. And today, yeah, he lost 4-1 to Colorado, but he let in only 3 goals on 40 shots. So it wasn't his fault. Unfortunately, LA doesn't have much of an easier schedule next week. That's Streamagami, which, by the way, I'm being corrected, isn't officially a Streamagami because that means it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, all like light schedule days, but actually Monday is a busy day. So you got to really make sure you get your terminology right with Stream Scheme. But okay, either way, they're playing St. Louis twice and then Vegas twice. So I don't know how much easier it's going to get for LA, but Cal Peterson's doing his best, and the Kings are going to have to figure out how to score a goal to help him out here. Get Kempe another hat trick. Okay, let's go to Ottawa now. They've got 4 injuries on this list. No one really of note, like nothing recent. But they're playing right now against Toronto and winning 4-1. So how about that? And Drake Batherson has 2 goals. So I don't know. This isn't really content for the show. I don't really have anything to say about Ottawa. I guess I can report on our Evgeny Dadonov bet last week. We talked about, you said you think he's going to be above a 50-point pace rest of the season. I said below, and then he had 2 goals in 3 games versus Edmonton. So not looking good for me so far. I guess I was underrating this guy. Does he have any points today, Brian? Am I even further in the hole here with Dadonov?
Okay, I'm looking.
Okay, one sec. Sorry, I'll check. Okay, and answering my own question as I bring it up. Yeah, no, he has no points today. So I all of a sudden now 2 points in 4 games. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's only a 41 point pace, so I'm ahead.
All right, yeah. So you celebrate that prematurely as much as you want to. I had 2 guys I wanted to bring up to talk when we talked about Ottawa, like no big names, but guys worth talking about. And in the box score tonight, I see they've made themselves even more worth talking about. One was Ryan Desingle, who had 2 goals in his first 2 games played, once returning to Ottawa in a trade with Carolina. He had nothing since, with not a lot of shots on goal. His minutes weren't great, power play too, but he does have a goal on 5 shots tonight. So that's something. He's only played 8 minutes, but we're only at the end of the second. So he's pacing for 12 minutes, which isn't awesome, but 1 goal on 5 shots is. So there's a decent deep league option in Ottawa. And then the other name I was going to mention was Joey Decord, who so far, I don't want to jinx anything. He's up 20 of 21 against Toronto so far tonight after 2 periods. And I think he's just looked generally solid. I think he might be, and this isn't saying much, but Joey Decord might be as fine a spot start as Matt Murray has been. And like, I don't know, maybe he can push into a timeshare because Matt Murray has not been consistent at all, although what goalie could be behind this Ottawa team. But Joey Decord is making the case to be seeing more regular games. Pop quiz, Elon, do you know who the Ottawa backup is in tonight's game?
Oh, it's not Matt Murray?
It's not Matt Murray, and I don't know why.
And Hogberg is injured, I think.
Oh, Matt Murray went down in the warm-ups.
Oh, no. So I don't know. Hogberg's out. So who is it?
Kevin Mandolese.
I do not know this person. Okay, well.
Neither do I, and I don't know if we will. But there you go. Emergency called up from the taxi squad.
Well, keep in mind, then if Matt Murray is out long-term, then Joey Decord, I mean, again, like there's a lot of leagues I'm in where Matt Murray has been in free agency all year, except for like short little stretches. So I don't know if you're rushing to grab Joey Decord, but if you need saves and if Murray is out, there you go. William Nadeau actually already said that he likes Decord. He's liked what he's seen from him. He thinks he's better than Hogberg. When Hogberg is back, he thinks Decord should stay as the backup or maybe even tandem guy with Murray. So we'll wait and see what happens.
We also have a patron, a listener, a tier 1 competitor who has worked with Joey Decord in the past and has had lots of really great things to say about, like worked with him in a hockey capacity and has had some really great things to say about him. So I am very interested to see how much he can do, especially if he gets a chance. I mean, like I said, don't expect consistency, but like you said, Elon, if you want saves, Joey Decord could be a nice little option for you.
So who is it? Are you not allowed to say who it is that's worked with him? Okay, maybe we're not allowed. So fine. Let's move. Okay, I'll just cut that part out.
It's well, for YouTube, it's Tom.
What's the the name again of that goalie that you said is the backup?
Kevin Mandolese or Mandolese.
Okay.
I don't know.
By the way, Brian, I'm being informed in the chat room that Shane has Kevin Mandolese on his team in my Dynasty League with him. So he's heard of him. I'm happier with Decord at the moment. All right, let's go to Pittsburgh. They've got 4 injuries, and that recently increased to 4 with Jared McCann joining Jason Zucker on the IR. So as always, I thought this season would be the year finally where we don't have to keep checking in on who's the random guy in the top 6, because it looked like they were finally going to have, their 6 good players. But with Zucker out, we're once again throwing random names. So in the shutout over Buffalo, we had Crosby with Rust and Gensel, no randoms there. Then Malkin with Kapanen and Evan Rodriguez. So Kapanen was pointless on Saturday, but still has 8 points in his last 6 games. So he seems like an obvious guy to add because Pittsburgh has quite the schedule next week. They play 5 times: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So if Kapanen's out there, you're grabbing him right now. No question. Brian, if it's between Kapanen and Kempe for next week, which by the way, you can't just compare the number of games exactly, like 5 versus 4. You have to actually check how many games you'll be able to fit this person into your lineup. So say it was the same number of games. You're going to get each of them into 4 games. Do you go with Kapanen or Kempe? I'm just curious.
I'm going to go with Kasperi Kapanen. He's getting better and better after a start that was initially very strong and then he disappeared completely and it seemed a little rocky, but I've watched some Pittsburgh games lately and have really liked what I've seen from him going by the eye test, Elon, which I do use, much to some of our listeners' surprise. I'm sure I do watch the game.
Robots have eyes?
Yes.
I guess cameras.
They have sensors.
Yeah. I thought you just took in data and processed it and spat it out. I thought that was what you do.
I mean, that's still what I'm doing when I watch a hockey game.
Right.
Too.
You're using your eye sensors.
Yeah. That said, as happy as I am with Kapanen's performance, his 5-on-5 on ice shooting percentage is approaching 16%, which ain't gonna hold. Usually we're looking at a number closer to 9%, maybe closer to 10% if he is playing with a Crosby or a Malkin. So expect some regression in Kapanen's numbers. But with Malkin, who's officially back on his point production game, I'd like to think Kapanen starts as a 50 to 55 point guy rest of the season, likely worth rostering the whole way through. He doesn't get as many shots on net as Kempe, but I think he's going to have more points and point more consistently too. So I would take Kapanen over Kempe. Do you concur?
Yeah, sounds right. Especially just with his line mates. Like playing with Kopitar is definitely not bad, but I guess that doesn't compare with playing with Malkin. Then maybe if you're going in a deeper league, who would you take between Evan Rodriguez, who, like I said, is also playing with Malkin and Kapanen on that second line, or you can take Brandon Tanev, who's also on this team and has 5 games next week. He's not on as sweet of a line, but he's got a 5-game point streak going to go along with his generally big hit numbers. So it's almost like a philosophical question, right? Do you go with the player on a better line, but that's cold, or do you go with the player who's hot, but not on a good line?
I would go with the former. So I'd go with Evan Rodriguez here. If your league counts hits, this is a no-brainer. You go Brandon Tanev. But yeah, I will go Rodriguez playing with Malkin. How could I suggest otherwise? Would you suggest otherwise?
Yeah. I'm going Tanev here, and I'd be happy to make a bet for this week of Rodriguez versus Tanev. One reason is that if you're in a limited moves league and you're using one of them to add Rodriguez, there's no guarantee he stays on that line, right? That could be Zach Aston Reese on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Tanev is doing fine where he is.
The truth is that Rodriguez has had these opportunities before and done a little with them. I just expect the guy to be the guy in the better position is the guy I'd rather. So I don't if you asked me who to take for the next game, I'd say Rodriguez. If you asked me to take for the next week, yeah, maybe I'd say Brandon Tanev because I don't have to worry about his deployment. But his deployment sucks no matter what. So,
but can we talk about it for a sec? Like, just in general, like deployment. I know you, me, like Ben and Lewis, like we're always deployment, lines. I'm just curious. That was too crazy. That was too stupid. Okay, let me say it again.
No, I loved it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I went off the rails a little bit, but like, there's got to be something to like Brandon Tanev having a good season and putting up points. Like, yeah, he's not playing with Malkin, but clearly that third line plays sometimes. Clearly, like, it's not just complete luck. I assume that Brandon Tanev is on a 5-game point streak. Like, I'm not saying he's going to continue to be on a point streak for another 5 games, but he's shown that he must have some ability to put up points, which we haven't seen from Rodriguez. So it can't only be about deployment, right?
No. And so of course you can go with a hot hand too. I think that's reasonable. We've seen Rodriguez be like a point per game player at his peak, which was, I guess, 3-4 years ago.
Did you say point per game player for Rodriguez?
Sorry, a half point per game
player.
Okay,
yeah, big difference.
3 or 4 years ago. And Tanev has never reached that mark and is on a bit of a heater. So like, I think both options are perfectly defensible. I don't think there's a right answer here. This just goes to your fantasy manager style. And my style would go with Rodriguez because, I never expect something unsustainable to last even one more game.
Fair enough. Yeah, but for the record, I'm not expecting Tanev to continue this point streak, but I think he can maybe get you 2 points in the next 5 games. We'll see if if we're making this bet. I think it's going to be like I'm going to win 2-1 on Tanev versus Rodriguez. Okay, let's go to Tampa Bay, another team that plays 5 games this week, and another team with 4 injuries currently on this TSN list. One of those names is Nikita Kucherov, who news just came out that he's on track with his recovery, which led to a huge percentage ownership spike on Yahoo, which is kind of interesting, right? Because like he's on track. They didn't say he's like ahead of schedule. They said he's on track. And the plan was for him to be back in time for the playoffs. So I'm not exactly sure what people are doing. I think people got overly excited and are expecting that this means he's going to be back like next week. But as far as I know, please correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I know, he's going to be back for the NHL playoffs, maybe a couple games before, but not anytime soon.
Yeah. And Tampa, I think, physically can't bring him back because of the cap implications it would cause. So it's fun and exciting to see that Kucherov is coming back and getting ready. But even if he is 90 or 100%, say a month before the regular season ends, he ain't playing.
Yeah, so it's great to hear. And I'll bet you he's going to be a huge part of Tampa's second cup in a row. You've heard it here first. I'm calling Tampa Bay to win the cup again. But
is that it? Yeah. Did you just like decide that now on the fly?
No, I actually made a bet on Tampa a little earlier. I thought that their odds were looking pretty good. And I dropped, or no, I guess I don't need to say that on the show. I'll just say, no, I've been thinking that for a while. I think Tampa's looking so good, like without Kucherov, and we know Kucherov's coming back. It just seems like, why shouldn't they win it again? I guess. And I'm assuming, by the way, that Colorado's going to have all their goalies injured. And I'm assuming, by the way, that Colorado's going to have all their goalies injured again, like usual. So that's going to knock them out. And then who's the competition really? So yeah, my bet right now is Tampa, but obviously this Stanley Cup, anything could happen. Too bad it's not like that March Madness, but there's just one game. Then really anything could happen, right? You get eliminated after one loss in the playoffs, NHL, even with a 4-game. Oh my God, what am I doing?
I don't know.
Even in a 7-game series, anything could happen. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about here. Let's get back to Tampa Bay. Brian, I just wanted to mention, we brought it up before, and I guess you teased it that we'll talk about it here. So I've got the allocated time in front of me. Andre Palat, this guy, so good. He had 2 assists versus Nashville on Saturday in the 6-3 win. He's now up to 26 points in 26 games for Andre Palat, point per game. He has a career high 69 point pace way back in 2014-15. He's been more of a 45 to 50 point guy over the past 3 seasons, but clearly this increase in his deployment, like he's been playing with either like Stamkos or Point and on the top power play since like midway through last season, all through the playoffs, and now all the way through this year. Are we at a point where, at least for the rest of this season, until things change, the lines change or something, which I don't think are going to happen this season, are we at a point where we have to just assume that this Andre Palat point per game is for real and he's going to continue it rest of the way?
Would you believe, Elon? Actually, let me put it this way. How well do you think Palat is scoring at 5-on-5 this year? Do you think better or worse or the same as always?
Okay, so I guess the fact that you're asking the question makes me assume that you're going to say it's worse, and then he's getting all the success on the power play, and you're going to say the power play is like not as sustainable, so you'd expect that to fall off. So actually, you're going to say that Palat is worse than usual.
So Palat is doing about the same at 5-on-5 as he always had. Like he's not doing anything different than he's done for the last several years. But you are right that I am about to say that everything Palat is adding to his point totals is coming on the power play. Palat has 15 power play points in 26 games. If you do some quick back of the napkin math here, that puts him on a pace for 47 power play points in 82 games, which is wild. I mean, Palat has already tied his career high 15 power play points, which he racked up in 3 times as many games back in 2016-17. Of course, he's playing on the top unit, which is really great, but even on the top unit, Palat can't keep this up. And here's one way to explain why he can't. Palat has been on the ice for 19 Tampa power play goals. He scored 7 of them himself, by the way, on 16 shots. So he's shooting 44% on the power play. And then on the remaining 12 power play goals that Palat didn't score, he assisted on 8 of them, which means that Palat has points on 15 of 19 Tampa power play goals this year. This Tampa power play is good, right? They're like pretty dangerous, of course, that goes without saying, but they're also 4th in shooting percentage in the league, which I don't think they're so good that they deserve to be shooting quite as well as they are. So I'd expect some of Palat's production to tail off on the power play. So, Elon, I said 47 power play points is not sustainable for the rest of the season. What do you think would be a sustainable power play point pace for Andre Palat rest of season?
Okay, so you're saying pace rest of seasons, like assuming that we stretch it over 82 games. I normally like a player gets like 25 plus power play points if they're like on the top power play and like a big part of it. And then like the really elite ones, we're talking like 30 to 35. So I'll give him like 25 to 30 since he's clearly a big part of this power play.
Okay, so take that number, add 35 points, full circle here, going back to his 5-on-5 production, add 35 points to that number from 5-on-5, and right there you'll have what a fair expectation is for him rest of season. So what you did, Elon, if you give him 25 points, Palat is a 60-point player the rest of the way, which,
wow.
Yeah, right now, point per game, 26 points in 26 games. So, I know this is hard. I don't have Palat on any of my teams, so I can't practice what I preach. I can't put this into action, but I wonder if you sell high. And Elon, I'm wondering if Dave is listening, your couple opponent who offered you Palat already and is going to reconsider offering him up again for Taylor Hall. After hearing all that, would you take the deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's Hall pacing for? 50?
Yeah, 50.
I can't take it anymore with him.
He's supposed to get better.
But also, like, Palat can get more power play points, right? He doesn't have to be 25 pace. Also, he could do better at even strength. Like, he is playing with good line mates, playing with Steven Stamkos. So, like, I'm not going to be complaining too much.
He seems to sustainably doing the same he's always done at 5-on-5.
I'm very happy with what Palat's doing. And
Okay.
Obviously you're saying he might regress on the power play, but I know he'd have to really regress to get to Taylor Hall at this point. By the way, same as my Pittsburgh question for you, another philosophical question of better line versus hot streak. But let's say for next week, again, 5 games. So you might be wanting to stream in a Tampa player. Let's say you could take Yanni Gourde, who's pointless in 3 games, but currently playing with Stamkos and Killorn. Oh, so I said Palat's playing with Stamkos. Currently, Palat's been playing with Braden Point. They've split up Point and Stamkos. But okay, so Gourde is playing with Stamkos and Killorn. Or you can go with line 3, Blake Coleman. So I guess the Brandon Tanev of Tampa, who has 2 multi-point games in his last 3 games. So who would you prefer to stream in next week if both are available between Gourde and Coleman?
I'm going to take option C here, please, and ask you, what about Tyler Johnson? Tyler Johnson has 7 points in his last 8 games, a bunch of 2-shot games. So on those merits alone, Johnson seems like a better option than Blake Coleman. But Yanni Gourde does have that top deployment. He's the Evan Rodriguez right now in Tampa. So I guess if I want to be consistent with what I said in Buffalo, I would take Pittsburgh. I'll take Yanni Gourde, Tyler Johnson, and then Blake Coleman as my third choice of those 3. But I think Johnson is kind of an interesting option as sort of the Brandon Tanev, but with a little more skill.
Yeah, perhaps. Okay, so there you go. Some options for you if you're considering trying to get in on these 5 games. There's also, by the way, this guy, Eric Cernak. If you need a D, he's got 1 goal and 4 assists in his last 4 games, 3 shots in each of his last 3 games. So another good get for a 5-game week if you need D. Brian, let's go now to the Vancouver Canucks, who also have 4 injuries on this list, headlined by Elias Pettersson, who's definitely going to miss at least the beginning of next week with his upper body injury. We'll see if he gets back in by the end of the week. Might be a good time to take a look at Tanner Pearson, who's likely in free agency across the board after going pointless in 11 games straight. But he's been the one getting on the top power play in Peterson's. But he's been the one who's gotten on the top power play in Pettersson's absence, and he finally got off the schneid on Saturday. He got a power play assist in the 2-1 win over the Oilers, along with 6 shots on goal. So Tanner Pearson, he was a solid 53-point pace guy last season, not with top power play deployment. I don't know what happened this year for him to fall off so badly. Like, he's generally kept similar deployment, but either way, with a Monday, Wednesday schedule versus Ottawa, and with Pettersson out and him on the top power play, I feel like he's got to be a pretty good stream right now, right?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to say yes. So a good stream, Tanner Pearson, sure. With your framing, you're like, I don't know why he fell off so bad from last year when he was on that 53-point pace, but that was a career high point pace for Tanner Pearson. So I think the question is actually, what went right for him last year, where Tanner Pearson went from being like a 28 to 45 point guy to this 53-point pace in his Vancouver debut? And the answer is that Pearson got some friendly variance that's fallen off in this season. And that's why Tanner Pearson has not had so much success converting, because he hasn't been getting as much luck as he got in his first year in Vancouver. So I think Tanner Pearson's probably like a 50-ish point guy at best, but I like him on the top power play, of course, for as long as that lasts. But if you're thinking of adding him as a permanent addition to your roster, I would consider Tanner Pearson to be more of a perma-stream type guy, with 40 to 45 points being a safer expectation, all things being back to normal when Pettersson's back in the lineup, kind of like a Dylan Dubé type, who, by the way, was mentioned on the stream scheme this week as one stream schemer to stream, streamer to stream. One of those made sense. So let's just keep them all. Dave is actually 5-1-1 on the season in picking streamers, which is fantastic. And we actually just finished talking about one on Tampa and one on Pittsburgh, but you'll have to go listen to the stream scheme to find out. But if you're listening to Keeping Karlsson right now and you want to know about Tanner Pearson, stream him in on the top power play, but otherwise don't make any long-term plans for him.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. I was literally saying he's on the top power play and they play Ottawa Monday, Wednesday, like end of story. I like him for those 2 games and then figure things out after that. Okay, let's go to Carolina. We're down to the teams now who have 3 injuries on the TSN injury list. Carolina has a tough one though, because Vincent Trocheck joins Mrazek and Teuvo Teravainen. That's a tough 3 to be out of the lineup. Not that it's hurting Carolina that much. They just beat Detroit today 2-1. So I guess they're keeping on rolling, but man, not good news for Trocheck, right? Sarah Siv tweeted, Rod Brindamore does not sound optimistic about Vincent Trocheck's return, says it's an upper body injury that will keep him out, quote unquote, longer than hoped. Won't say weeks or months. I'm hearing it's longer term, but of course things can change. So I guess we don't know for sure. Like, there hasn't been an official update from Carolina on how long Trocheck will be out, but this is rough news for a guy who we've been lauding all season for how well he did. And now he's gone. So that stinks. But in the meantime, I guess good news from Martin Nichas, who has been playing on the top line and top power play with Aho, also Niederreiter on that top line. And Nichas had 8 points in 6 games going into today, which brought him to 19 points in 23 games on the season. I'll do a quick check now to see what happened today. I see that Brian Mantha scored for Detroit. We just streamed him into one of our leagues. That's cool. But anyways, for Carolina, Niederreiter scored from Aho and Slavin, and Dougie Hamilton scored. So nothing for Nichas there, but that doesn't take away from this amazing run that he's been on. Do you think that this guy can stick at a 70-plus point pace moving forward if this deployment sticks? Like, let's say Trocheck is out long-term. All of a sudden, you've got Nichas with Aho, again, at evens and with the man advantage. That's a really good spot, and he's clearly a very talented player. Or are you going to give him the Palat treatment and tell me about how he's overperforming on the top power play, and it's not going to last?
No, I'm going to tell you how Martin Nichas is overperforming from the second power play. He's putting up top power play production from the second unit, but now that Trocheck's return is nowhere apparently in sight, and Nichas is actually going on the top power play, that could just work out fine for Martin Nichas, and he could keep up what would have otherwise been unsustainable power play production. And also add in that Nichas, this poor guy, has just a single goal at 5-on-5, even though he's taken 32 shots, which means that Nichas is shooting 3% this year, which is worse than we expect from your average NHL defenseman, let alone forward. And Nichas is also shooting more often this year than he did last year as a rookie. So I would have expected him to have potted a few more goals by now. They'll come. He's on the top power play. I am pretty excited about Nichas holding the 65 plus point pace so long as he holds this top power play role.
Yeah, he's been great. Anyone who drafted him is really enjoying life now, assuming they held on through all of Carolina's missed games. So Minnesota also has 3 injuries. One of them is Marcus Foligno, which obviously, right, like he was on my opponent's team in the couple last week, another Marcus, and Foligno destroyed me. And now that he was done with me, now he, went cold and then eventually got injured. So that's too bad. He was on a really good run, having a good season. So I feel bad for Marcus Foligno. Hopefully he'll be back soon. In the meantime, Brian, we were really high on Kevin Fiala recently. We were telling people, like, if he's available, go grab him. And then he went totally cold, only 2 goals in 7 games going into today. And he was pointless with only 1 shot over his previous 2 games, again, going into today. So when I prepped this document last night, I was going to ask you at this point, like, is Fiala someone, like, people are asking us if they should drop him? Like, do you have any reassurance? And so I have a feeling you were going to say that Fiala's good. I guess you'll let me know, but I should point out that since I wrote that, Minnesota beat Arizona 4-1 today, including a goal and an assist for Fiala. So really, if I was prepping this today, I wouldn't even ask this question. But since I did, and you already prepped it, what do you think about this guy? He's gone cold. He's been hot. He's not on the best line. Like, he's been playing on the 3rd line, according to line combos. Maybe you're going to, say that, no, that's not the 3rd line because Parise is on that line. But like in general, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on Kevin Fiala at this point, who's been a lot more inconsistent than I would have liked, but I'm happy with his production today.
I'd say it's not the 3rd line because Kevin freaking Fiala on that line and Zach Parise too. But I'm so excited. Like, sometimes things just work out. Like, we work so hard to try and project and anticipate, and this is just some instant gratification. For me, I was prepping, researching Kevin Fiala before the Minnesota game started today. And here's what I wrote. I said the hot run for Fiala that he had earlier this year was definitely not a fluke, and that 2 things were happening for him to hurt him in his production so far. First is that Fiala is only seeing 14 minutes of ice a night. The second is that he doesn't have a centerman. Okay, fine. Joel Eriksson Ek is fine. Nick Bonino, probably not so fine. These compared to Mikko Koivu, who he seemed to really work well with last year. And then the third thing, actually, that I'm going to add is that no goals were being scored while Fiala was on the ice. Teams on ice shooting percentage with Kevin Fiala was 6.5% at 5-on-5. So he had only picked up 3 assists. And then we talked about the powerless Minnesota power play last week, which definitely had affected Kevin Fiala. And I wrote before the game today that this is still a really good buy low window for Kevin Fiala, and that maybe you want to wait for his time on ice to go back up. And just, I couldn't love his stat line today anymore. Time on ice, back up to over 17 minutes. That powerless Minnesota power play, guess what? Kevin Fiala scored a goal, power play goal with it. And then how he only had 3 assists, guess what? Kevin Fiala added another assist today. So he checked all 3 boxes that I pointed out as saying, these are all going to fix. They're all going to redeem themselves. And so if maybe you can try and go to the Kevin Fiala owner and be like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, want to sell high? And maybe they'll be like, oh, finally, Kevin Fiala did something. I can unload him now for some kind of value. You're winning that deal.
I mean, yeah, I like it. I have Fiala in one of my leagues. Like, we should point out that was the second power play that Fiala scored from, right? He only played a minute and 25 on the power play. The top unit played a lot more, over 4 minutes for Zuccarello, Bukestad, Kaprizov, Suter, and Spurgeon. And Fiala was on the second unit. Yeah, they scored a power play goal, which is nice, but it's not exactly like he's got the primo deploymento so far. He's also playing at even strength with Greenway and Ryan Hartman currently, I guess is his main center. So still in a great situation. I guess, yeah, I like him. He's clearly very talented, and I'd love to see more stat lines like today. But on the other hand, like, you could say that after a game like today, that's a good time to actually sell high and finally rid yourself of this concerning deployment, which I agree with you that he's good, but I don't love a second power play guy that I could trade for someone really good.
So I would be the one approaching you saying, don't you want to get rid of your Kevin Fiala? And you'd be like, oh, yes, please. I guess we'll see. Do you want to make a bet on this at all?
Let's make a trade. Who would you offer me? Let's say, for real, like in your league, you don't have Fiala in Cupful. Okay. Who are you offering me?
Okay. Let me pull up my roster.
Okay, here we go. Live trade between divisions. And you know what? You would think that's not allowed, but we're the commissions, so this is allowed.
Sean Monahan.
Okay, I think I would do that.
Okay.
Monahan also just had a big game.
There it is. So Sean Monahan versus Kevin Fiala from March 15th onwards. Are we doing points or cupful points?
I mean, so the thing is, if I was actually offered this trade, I wouldn't just accept it right away like this. I would look at like games played and see, like, 'cause I know Calgary's played a lot more games than Minnesota because Minnesota had that stretch. So maybe like if we could do
points per game
moving forward, I'll take Monahan over Fiala for that.
Okay.
Regular points, not couple points.
Okay, regular point pace from March 15th onwards. Done.
Okay, put that on the bet board. I'm going to win that. I'm going to win the Dadonov bet. I'm going to be huge. I got to start betting actual things with you.
You say that every time.
I know. Well, then I usually lose these bets. So it's
yeah, exactly.
Okay, by the way, in nets for Minnesota, so really William Nadeau crushed it again, like I said already on that interview on Thursday. One thing he said that was really smart was like, even though Kakkonen is doing really well, he still didn't rank him so high. And he said, because all it will take is like a game or two good games from Talbot and everything can change. And look at that. Talbot got in the net on Friday. I don't think people expected. They assumed that they would just continue rolling out Kakkonen since he was doing really well. But no, Talbot went in on Friday, got a shutout. Then Talbot got the start again today versus Arizona and stopped 21 of 22 shots. So I don't know. Maybe they go to Kakkonen next, maybe not. But either way, just goes to show you that you don't want to be betting big on one of these backup goalies that seems to be taking over the job from the guy who was the starter going into the year, because there's a reason why they had Talbot as the starter going into the year. It's because they want him to be the starter. And obviously Kakkonen is the future, but Talbot is still probably the present. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't have any predictions. Like, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen, but they both, like, Talbot seems good on this Minnesota team. So yeah, if you traded someone big for Kakkonen, you might be regretting it right now.
I would be surprised if the timeshare swung any greater than a 60-40 split. And by that, I mean, like, any one of them sees more than 60% of the starts going forwards. But I think it's going to be pretty even. But yeah, I think when Cam Talbot struggled upon returning from injury and was just like, oh yeah, Kakkonen was crushing it and giving up a lot for him. And maybe you just want to walk that back a little bit if you are one of those people.
Okay, so on Philly, they've got 3 injuries as well. No one really significant. Morgan Frost, and I feel bad for him. Remember, he came in for like 1 or 2 games and got good deployment. We were talking about him on the show, like, oh, I wonder if this guy will be good. Maybe an example of someone to not get too excited about just because of deployment until he actually does something. But unfortunately, Morgan Frost got injured, so we'll see if he can come back next year and finally do something. But anyway, since we're on Philly, I've got to mention, so this is a guy who was injured at one point. If you go back and listen to an episode from the start of the season, I remember I had read and I shared the story of how Shane Gostisbehere was coming into camp finally healthy, and the coach was saying, like, AV was saying, like, Gostisbehere tells me that he's finally healthy, and apparently these last couple of years where he's struggled, he's been like dealing with injuries and he hasn't been himself. And then AV was like, well, so we'll wait and see. I'm happy to give him the opportunity if he's actually able to perform like he used to. Well, I don't know. I think that might be true, right? Like, Gostisbehere is finally, it took him a little while, but he's finally gotten on the top power play, which we brought up a little while ago. And he is doing so well. I really hope you listened to us when we brought him up a couple of weeks ago and grabbed him. He got a power play goal on Saturday. So that's a 3-game power play point streak now for Shane Gostisbehere. We all know that he used to be a 70-point guy in this spot, and now he's in this spot. So I can't imagine a reason why he should be in free agency in any league. Like, Brian, I guess the big comparable here for me would be Gostisbehere versus like an Adam Bocus. But I think that both should be rostered. But I'm curious to know, do you see them as like equal at this point?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'll go yes, but I really like that Gostisbehere has had 4 or more shots on goal in 3 of his last 5 games. To quote my favorite podcaster ever, "Yum yum yum."
Is that me?
That's you.
Oh, okay. So I guess Shane is giving a counterpoint that Shane Gostisbehere has been bad defensively. So maybe that will mean that that would be so frustrating, right? If like all of a sudden he's getting all these power play points, but then he gets healthy scratched, but it could happen. But for now he's doing well.
I think Shane is just jealous of another Shane doing better than him.
There could only be one. Okay. That's good, Brian. You're a funny guy. Okay. Let's go to Washington now. No big injuries here, except for Henrik Lundqvist is still on their IR, but he's been posting videos of workouts he's been doing while he recovers from his heart surgery in January, which replaced an aortic valve. This guy should, like, most humans would not be like doing these workouts right now, getting on the ice and stopping pucks. But Lundqvist has. I saw on NBC Sports Edge. Brian, did you know, by the way, it's not called Roto World anymore?
I'm the one who told me this.
Okay, well, now I'm sharing it with everyone. Apparently it's called, I don't like that. What happened to Roto World?
It was a lot easier to say than NBC. What is it? Fantasy Sports Edge?
I guess
and the edge is all capitalized.
I just feel like, yeah, so you acquired RotoWorld, smart acquisition, NBC, but you don't have, like, Skype is still called Skype. It's not called Microsoft video calling just because Microsoft took them over. Anyway, whatever. I don't have a say in this. But anyways, I saw on NBC Sports Edge on Friday a headline that Washington Capitals have not completely closed the door on a potential return for Henrik Lundqvist this season. What? So, I don't know, no fantasy impact here. Don't go out and grab Henrik Lundqvist, but I would love that so much. I'm tuning in. Like, I'm canceling any obligations I have that day to watch that game when Lundqvist plays for the Capitals if it happens.
Yeah, I will watch it too, but I don't think, I don't know anything. I have no inside information, but it just, to me, it seems really unlikely that it's going to be this year. But whenever it does happen, maybe the silver lining here is that we're probably going to get another year of Hank after this one. Right? There's no way he hangs him up now if he's capable of playing again. He's got to get the doctor's,
approval. He's got to make a team, right? Like Washington now all of a sudden has Vanacek and Samsonov, who both are looking really good. And, back in the day, Lundqvist could wipe the floor with these guys, I'm sure. But right now it might be tough. But I'd love to see him play another NHL game for sure. Okay, Winnipeg is fun, interesting looking at their injury list because I forgot about Brian Little. He's still there. That's too bad. Remember, he used to be the second line center. He used to be good back at the start of keeping Karlsson. We talk about how he's underrated and everyone should draft him every year. So
Little, Ladd, and Wheeler were the secret weapons of early keeping Karlsson.
Yeah, Wheeler's still going, not so much for Little and Ladd. The replacement line to centerman Pierre-Luc Dubois not producing much better than Little lately from the IR. Only 1 assist in 3 games since we talked about him last week. It's funny that I wrote this. So I wrote in my notes, who are you dropping first between Dubois and Fiala if you have to pick one? Obviously, I know you're not dropping Fiala, but is Dubois someone that you would also go on a big tirade about how actually he's doing so much better than you think, he's just getting bad luck? Or would you be concerned as a Dubois manager?
I'm very concerned as a Dubois manager. He's also seen a drop in time on ice. He's playing with Ehlers and Connor at 5-on-5, which should be good, but he's hasn't done much with that most recent deployment. And he's also on a decent second power play unit too. But Dubois, I actually blame more for his own problems than I do Kevin Fiala. Like Kevin Fiala, I'm like, yeah, don't worry. He's going to be fine. Pierre-Luc Dubois, I am not saying the same thing. I don't know what to tell you. If you've been hanging on to Dubois through all like the Columbus BS and then like waiting for the quarantine to end and then finally settling in with Winnipeg, all for nothing. I'm sorry, I guess that's all I can say. If I had him in like a cupful, I would be pretty ready to make like the Postal Service and give up.
Oh, good one. Okay, I like that song. That's an album, right? Not the song. I like the Postal Service. Why did they only have one album? They were so good. I guess because it's the guy from Death Cab for Cutie and he had better things to do.
I guess when you make the best record ever, there's no way to follow up.
Oh, okay. I'm sure there must be some like oral history of that album. And like, didn't they make it? They were like sending tracks back and forth. Like 2 people who collaborated on it didn't even like meet, which nowadays is like normal. But at the time, I guess that was kind of impressive. Now, I guess I was, as I'm saying, I'm like, wait, that's me with my coworkers every day right now. All right. So where are we here? We're on Arizona. Oh, now we're down to the teams with only 2 injuries on this list at tsn.ca/NASL/injuries. So you would think that means that these teams are the lucky ones, but Arizona not so lucky because Darcy Kemper is still on the IR. I haven't seen any update. Antti Raanta got the start versus Minnesota today. Didn't go that well. He let in 4 goals. Like Aiden Hill got the start on Friday. He also let in 4 goals. So I don't know. I would think that like Raanta should be a decent guy to stream in. He had a really good game on Wednesday, but I don't know. Not a guarantee.
No, not a guarantee, apparently. And he's always just one movement away from being injured again. So I guess we'll just wait and watch and see. I saw a tweet that the Coyotes were going to like start being more tight-lipped about their starting goalie, which is annoying, especially if you want to know how invested to be in Raanta. Elon, in one league where goalie wins are all that counts, I dropped Talbot for Raanta when Kemper got injured. Do you think that's a mistake? I still have the chance to go back and reverse that and drop Raanta and just re-add Talbot, but I'm sort of puzzled. I don't know what to do.
I would prefer Talbot.
Yeah. I mean, Minnesota is the real deal, right? Like they're a really good team. And I actually shopped Cam Talbot around a lot before I dropped him. And one guy got really mad. He's, why you offer me Cam Talbot? And then when I dropped him, he like 3 days later, he sent me a note out of nowhere. I was like, see, like, what were you doing with that offer? And like, to be fair, I have in a previous life been known to shoot some pretty bad offers out. And there's a question coming up on our Patreon cast this week about whether I still do that and what happens when I do or don't. But yeah, I think I might still go get Talbot again.
I think so.
I don't know what to do. Like Ranta probably won't play a whole lot more, especially if Aiden Hill started tonight.
No, Ranta started tonight, but Aiden Hill got Friday. And he only let in 3 goals. Actually, it was 4-1, but I guess the last goal was an empty net. So I don't know. Ranta wasn't terrible, but Talbot, has had 2 really good games in a row now. And Minnesota seems like they're a better team to have the goalie for. Brian, I guess I won't comment. I'll save it for the Patreon cast on Tuesday to comment on all the emails I get as your co-manager of all the rejected trades that you've sent out and how I feel about them. Okay. So Calgary has 2 injuries on this list. Tyler Parsons is on the IR. That's one of them. This is a great segue for me because they don't need Tyler Parsons because they already have Jacob Markstrom back, and he's been back to his stellar self with 2 1-goal assist wins over Montreal on Thursday and Saturday. Shutouts would have been better. Like, I kind of don't like how the Habs need to score a late goal when it's looking like a shutout, but I guess I won't complain. So Markstrom is back, just like Will Nadeau, and you said in previous episodes, he had a little bit of a struggle, but I don't know. Now we'll see how he does against non-Montreal, but looking good. Okay, so let's go to Columbus. What a mess in Columbus, right? Like Merzlikins has let in 5 and 3 goals in his 2 games since returning from the IR. He did get the win over Dallas in OT on Saturday. So then today, Korpisalo got the start again, and Korpisalo actually did well. He only let in 1 goal, and they lost 2-1 in the shutout. So 2-1 in the shootout. So I don't know. I don't really want to talk about the Columbus goalies. I feel like we've done it a lot, but clearly we don't really have a sure starter. It might just be back and forth for a while until someone goes hot. And then I guess I'll also bring up Seth Jones, who got an assist today, but I was going to bring him up as another one like McAvoy and Krug, who were pointless in 4+ games. And I was going to ask you, I guess you ranked Krug ahead of McAvoy. Where does Seth Jones rank on this list of defensemen who are, slow right now, but, were drafted pretty high going into the season?
Probably right in the middle. I guess one thing to say about Jones's production and how he should be doing better is no even strength goals on 53 shots over 30 games, which is like a really nice shot rate for a defenseman. And it's unfortunate that he hasn't picked up a goal on any of them. Usually he'll score on like 4% of his shots. So I expect slightly better things for Seth Jones. Also, the Blue Jackets haven't been very good shooting while he's on the ice, shooting barely above 6% as a team. So those are 2 reasons to think that Seth Jones is better than what he's currently shown. And because of that, I would take him over Charlie McAvoy. I feel like,
piling on McAvoy today.
Well, no, I don't mean to. Well, that's why I paused. I don't mean to pile on McAvoy. And I'm trying to think of, do you have a counter argument for McAvoy over Jones, or is it as obvious? Like, I think it's clear.
I mean, I think that McAvoy has a higher ceiling. Also Jones has been bumped off the top power play. Werenski's doing really well lately. I think Jones is like a really solid floor guy, but McAvoy could always just bump Grishlik. Like apparently he did for a bit in the last game and all of a sudden get on a roll. So I think I would probably say Jones is the safer bet and McAvoy is a bit of a bigger swing. Like we saw what McAvoy did at the start of the year. He went on this super hot run. So even if that was, you're saying a little bit lucky, like unsustainable, but he could still probably do it again. He did it once. He could do it again. It's been a while since we've seen Jones go on like a monster run. Like we saw McAvoy go on.
That's true. So you're saying because Jones has not run unsustainably hot, and I just named a couple reasons why, like he is like, he's in line for some good regression. That's reason for you to go to McAvoy.
No, I would take Jones also, but you asked me for a reason. And my reason would be that I think McAvoy has a higher ceiling.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so Detroit has 2 injuries. One of them is Tyler Bertuzzi. They're almost fully healthy, right? They had a lot of people out. Now we're just waiting on Bertuzzi. But don't look now, but the wings that you drafted in your fantasy league and likely dropped have been actually doing things lately. So Dylan Larkin had goals in 2 straight going into today, by the way. So today was Mantha scored from Luke Glendening and Philip Hronik. So I'll keep that in mind as I read the rest of these numbers. So Mantha had a goal and 2 assists versus Tampa on Thursday, another goal today. So that's good. He might be available in your league. Brian and I just added him in a league where we dropped him. We drafted Mantha. He drove us crazy. We dropped him like 3 weeks ago in this like fantasy hockey trades invitational. And now we just added him back and he got us a goal today. So that's nice. Zadina had 2 goals and 3 assists in his previous 3 games going into today. And Philip Hronik make that now 3 straight games with points. The 2 earlier ones were with 2 assists in each of those games. So Hronik's on a nice run. How far are we right now, Brian? Like if we went traveled back in time and could look at like what we were expecting from the Wings going into the season, like all these players that may have been drafted, looking at the rest of the season moving forward, how far are we from having a similar projection?
Just to be clear, oh, no, sorry. Scratch that. I guess you got to define your preseason expectations, right? I think you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we tried to temper our expectations thinking that no Red Wing would be in a great position to put up any more than 60 points this season. If there's tape on me saying otherwise, please show it to me. And that just shows like how far we've come since we had higher expectations than that. But I'm pretty sure that's what we were saying. And I wouldn't say any differently. Like, even if you do hit with Mantha and Larkin, you'll do better than they are right now, but your ceiling still feels pretty low. So I guess if you're looking for an expectation the rest of the season, I'd say I would be happy with 55 points. Like, just for them to be fantasy relevant would be enough for me.
Wow. Okay. No, I think that we were drafting, unless I coerced you to draft Mantha. I think we took him pretty high, expecting to be like a 65, 70 point guy, and Larkin around the same. So you're saying you're still not expecting much, even though they're currently on hot runs, which I think is the smart thing and conservative choice right now. Filip Hronek, I think I said Hronek, I think it's pronounced Hronek, was just added in my couple division today. And I'm kind of regretting not having gotten him myself, because he's someone that we like going into the year. And yeah, I'm not saying he's going to go crazy, but he's on a nice run right now. And defense is hard to find in a lot of leagues. So I would check and see if Hronek is available for you in your league, just to at least ride out this hot streak and then see what happens after that. So in New Jersey, Nico Hischier is still out. We're still on teams with 2 injuries here, but obviously New Jersey's big one is Hischier. Devils have lost 8 of their last 9 going into today. And today versus the Islanders, they lost again. They went to the shootout, so it was close. Or no, they went to overtime. Wait, what happened here? They went to the shootout, but that was all that they were able to guess. They got an overtime loss. They got the 1 point. But yeah, the Devils have really been falling apart lately. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Maybe next year. I thought they'd be good this year. Obviously, you could just make an excuse that's because Hischier is out. And next year, Hischier will hopefully be healthy. Jack Hughes will be a year older. I don't know. But right now, it's not looking good. You
can find excuses. Corey Crawford leaving, Hischier being injured. There's excuses, but also COVID and them playing in this really compressed schedule now. I don't know. I would have expected like Andreas Janssen to be more rosterable, and I was so excited about Jack Hughes' strong start. And even now, lately, he's barely rosterable. Even Kyle Palmieri, a known like high floor guy, is not consistently producing, although he's finally started putting up a couple assists in recent games. But yeah, just a rough season for the Devils. And like you said, maybe next year.
And the team they played today, also 2 injuries, but they've got a big one on that list. And someone new, Anders Lee, out indefinitely with a lower body injury. So that stinks. And I'm been seeing that maybe he's just going to be gone for the rest of the season. It might be time to just completely move on from Anders Lee in your 1-year leagues. Brian, he's actually been a free agent all year in my dynasty league because it's a cap league and he has this crazy contract. So for a second I was thinking, oh, now I can add him and put him on my IR. But then I remembered, no, then I'd have to hold him for like 6 more years at $7 million a year or whatever it is. But anyways, Anders Lee, that's too bad because he was having a decent enough season. With him out, Kiefer Bellows got on a line and power play with Eberle and Barzal on Saturday, and he scored 2 goals in the 3-2 win. I'm checking down once again. Kiefer Bellows was playing with Barzal and Eberle, yes, on both line 1 and on the power play, and he scored again. So that's 3 goals in 2 games for Kiefer Bellows. His goal was assisted by Sebastian Aho. Oh, the defense, Sebastian Aho and Jordan Eberle. Okay, I was getting confused a little bit. So yeah. This guy he must be for real. He's a former first-round pick. I'm just answering the question right now. He must be for real. But like, I'm imagining this seems real. Like, it's not like some nobody getting goals, but it's like the deployment is good, like, or he doesn't have a good pedigree. He's a former first-round pick in 2016. He's on a good line. He's producing. Why not take him, right? Like, I don't know. Tell me a reason why we shouldn't stream him in right now in our Fantasy Hockey Trades Invitational League before one of our competitors listens to the show and snipes him.
I guess it depends what you're giving up. And we have super deep benches in that league, so it doesn't feel like giving up a whole lot, especially when Anthony Mantha sat fallow in the free agent pool for so long. So yeah, we could probably grab Kiefer Bellows and see where this goes. Kiefer, son of Brian Bellows, as you mentioned, was a former first-round pick, 19th overall pick of the Islanders back in 2016. He played in 125 AHL games before making his NHL debut last season. He just had a cup of coffee, 8 games. But in those 125 AHL games, Bellows had 34 goals and 50 points. So just 16 assists in 125 games. So I guess not a passer, Kiefer Bellows, but he shoots left. So that's probably why he gets this look for Anders Lee, who shoots left. Oliver Wahlstrom, if you're wondering, shoots right. And there's really nobody else inside the organization who shoots left and seems like they might be capable of stepping up onto the top line, as Kiefer Bellows is doing right now, especially now that he's scored 3 goals on 4 shots to make himself look real good to start. So we'll see if he lasts there. I guess the reason that he would is, 1, there's no one else who shoots left in the organization. 2, if they wanted to look outside the organization, the Islanders have 0 cap space. So they would need to somehow open up enough cap space to bring somebody onto the team.
Sorry, if I may, maybe I don't understand.
Yeah.
With Anders Lee on the long-term IR, doesn't that open up the cap space of Anders Lee's cap hit?
I'm
pretty sure I read that.
Long-term IR?
Yeah, he was moved to the long-term IR.
Okay, so I was on Cap Friendly. You're right. Okay, so I was on Cap Friendly earlier today, and now I see. Yeah, so they have $5.5 million in cap space. So there you go. So they have room to bring someone in, but that's the only way I think that Kiefer Bellows doesn't stay on the top line. I saw this thought that maybe Taylor Hall could be a good addition. That would be a lot of fun. Like, let's get Taylor Hall out of Buffalo. Let's put him on the Islanders. Lead the NHL in points right now. I'm not sure how that crumbles with games played taken into account, but that's something. So way to go, Long Island. And we'll see if somebody more exciting than Kiefer Bellows gets brought into the organization.
Okay, so short term, you're saying Bellows is in a good spot and you should grab him. Probably unsustainable because he's like whatever, scoring on 3 of his 4 shots. But at the same time, yeah, that does open up a very interesting opportunity for them to bring in someone who might even be better than Anders Lee, like a Taylor Hall. So I'd love that. The only thing I'd be concerned about as someone who has Taylor Hall on my couple team is there going to be one of these annoying things where he gets traded and then he has to like sit out a bunch of games while he goes through some protocols or things. That would be very frustrating if he didn't get a D2D status on Yahoo. So that's one thing I kind of dread about Hall getting traded, but probably would still be good for him to get out of Buffalo.
You would be, yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't even cut in. I'm good. Just cut me out of that.
Also, a JG Pajot, last minute addition to the COVID list today. So that's another player currently not in the Islanders lineup, but who knows? We've seen recently some false positives, so he may even be back next game. I guess we can't really speculate.
Oh, Patty, I saw Patty asked a question, but she just retracted it. She asked Bellows or Beauvillier. Do you want me to ask you on the show? Or
no, I think we should move on because we're like late already.
Great, let's do it.
Someone can answer in the chat. Yeah. I'd go Bellows.
Me too.
I like playing with Barzal. What are you going to do? Okay, next up, we're going to San Jose. They have 2 injuries on this list, but really the main story with San Jose are the outjuries of Tomas Hertl and Timo Meier recently. Yeah, Rudolph's Balcers is now day-to-day, but I think you make that trade every day of the week, getting Hertl and Meier for Balcers. The Sharks, by the way, have won 3 straight now, and their last 2 games were both great starts from Devin Dubnyk and Martin Jones. Yeah, they're both versus the Ducks, but I watched a lot of that game on Saturday, a lot of that game on Friday where Dubnyk just stoned the Ducks the whole game. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen longer. Like, I'm not saying people should add Devin Dubnyk, but nice to see he's not like completely done and that the Sharks can actually get some games of good goaltending. By the way, also Tomas Hertl was running super cold before going on the COVID list. Was on a stretch of only 5 points in 14 games before he went out of the lineup. So I'm sure, Brian, you had him on your couple team. You were probably happy to stash him and get this anchor off your roster. He was actually dropped in one of my leagues and I grabbed him. And then I was able to put him in my IR. So it's like a no-cost stash, kind of like what you were just suggesting to do with Kirby Doc earlier in the show. So I did the add and stash, and I've really benefited from it because I put Hertl back into my lineup for Friday and Saturday's game, and he's got 1 goal and 2 assists in those 2 games versus Anaheim since returning. So I'm curious now, what are we expecting from Hertl for the rest of the season? Are we still concerned about that cold streak reemerging once he's not playing Anaheim? Like, he's in a good spot. Like, he gets good deployment, and he had a really good year a couple years ago, but last year and then for a good stretch of this year, he's really struggled.
Last we saw Tomas Hertl, as you said, he was not doing very well and he was very frustrating. And yeah, I was kind of relieved to be able to just put him aside and not have to drop him and just be like, okay, you sit in my IR for a bit and maybe you'll come back and have sorted things out, which it appears Tomas Hertl has. But I'm still concerned that since coming back, Hertl's taken only 1 shot over 2 games. And we noticed this already with Hertl. His 5-on-5 shot rates were in steep decline to begin the year, as was his individual expected goals rates. So far, Hertl is making up for it with assists and power play points. And I'd like to think he could keep doing that. But I would still be prepared as a Hertl manager for him to fall below 60 points for the first time since breaking out a couple years back. But at the same time, I'm also ready to be pleasantly surprised about Tomas Hertl. All this to say, really disappointing start to the year. He's just getting back. I've got to wait and see. So I'm going to sort of just default to 60-point pace expectation.
Okay, that's fair. Like the optimist in me is saying, okay, San Jose's starting to look good. Erik Karlsson scored a goal on Friday. Like maybe I watched, like Karlsson looks good. Like I know, like overall, like when we've seen all these stats about how he like has been playing like so badly under the hood and blah, 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 like look good in that game on Friday against Anaheim for what it's worth. So I don't know. I still like to think that Sharks have higher upside than what they've shown us this year. But that's all I'll say. I'm not going to actually put my, name behind a prediction of like specifically them doing really well, because I know that that's only a recipe for pain. Okay, Toronto has 2 injuries, Wayne Simmons and Jack Campbell. So we'll keep you posted when they return if there's anything noteworthy to report on there. Like Simmons was on a good run before he got hurt. Jack Campbell seems like he could be like, I feel really bad for Jack Campbell, who was like had a shutout and then like went and got injured. And so now we have to wait to see if he's ever going to get the opportunity to show what he's got in Toronto before Frederik Andersen goes to free agency. Then on Vegas, 2 big name injuries, right? Alex Pietrangelo hasn't returned to the team yet after going back to Las Vegas for evaluation after getting hurt last Saturday. Not surprising to see a power play time on ice and production uptick from Shea Theodore since that game last Saturday. He has 1 goal and 3 assists in his last 3 games now. So obviously Shea Theodore owners are not hoping for Pietrangelo to return anytime soon, unless they're also Vegas Golden Knights fans. And then Brian, here's a random name for you. The player seeing an uptick in power play 2 time is a guy named Dylan Coughlin, who, by the way, scored a hat trick on Wednesday versus Minnesota. So, Brian, every episode I got to do this. Who's Dylan Coughlin? And is this someone that you would consider rostering with Pietrangelo out of the lineup and him getting some power play time?
No, he's not someone I would consider rostering. But to answer who he is, Coughlin? Do you know it's Coughlin?
I'm assuming.
Okay, I would go. I know someone with this last name, and they go by Coughlin. So I'm going to stick with that.
How do you spell cough?
With a U.
How do I not know how to spell cough? Cough is spelled Cough.
Yeah.
And how's cough? How's this guy spell it?
It's Cogh.
What?
Do I have that wrong?
Maybe I have a typo. Now I need to look this up.
No, it's Dylan Coughlin.
Oh. Well, then why don't I have a red underline here on... Okay, that's annoying. Should I just do the whole thing again? I don't want to do this terrible mispronunciation.
Yeah, sure. Do it again if you want.
Ugh. Okay, whatever. Just continue. I don't know. Just say that's Coughlin.
From where? I'll continue and you do what you want to do.
Okay.
You can cut and paste me.
Wait, Patty's saying
Coughlin.
cough. Okay, let me actually look this up to make sure. Dylan Coughlin. Okay. No, Brian, you're wrong. It's Coghlan.
Yeah. Do you know how to spell cough?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying no H. You're saying no. Okay, just go from where you were going. Okay, I'm an idiot.
I can look up the YouTube highlight.
No, I don't care. I don't know. Sorry, I'm wasting time here. It's like, why don't you just go from where you said
I'm gonna
no.
Answer. Yeah.
You said already no.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you who he is. Okay, go from there. Sure.
I'm just gonna say no.
Sorry, everybody.
Shane is teaching grade 4 English as we speak. Lucky kids. Do they learn by listening to the show? Oh, he doesn't know. Okay. No, I don't think you should bother with Dylan Coughlin, but this is who he is. He's an undrafted 23-year-old out of Duncan, BC, home to the Courtnalls, Russ and Jeff. You might be familiar with them if you were Vancouver or Montreal or a Columbus fan in the past. Coughlin has 64 points in 122 career AHL games, 26 goals, which is pretty good Actually, he's not far off those Kiefer Bellows numbers. Somehow, Coghlan had taken 8 shots over 11 games before scoring 3 goals on 5 shots to get his Hattie versus Minnesota. And then he followed up the Hattie by putting up a single shot in each of his last 2 games. So that is why I'm not running to go stream in Dylan Coghlan. I'd rather someone like Nicholas Haig.
Okay, that's definitely fair. Probably just neither, and assume that it's going to be Shea Theodore eating up all the defensive points over on Vegas. Okay, Florida only has 1 player on their injured list. His name is Noah Juleson, so he's not fantasy relevant. But one player that's no longer there is Anthony Duclair, who's back from his lower body injury. We called him a snoozer before he got hurt because he'd been bumped from the top 6. But on Saturday, he was back playing with Barkov and Verhaeghe, just like they were for most of the season. And he picked up 3 assists in the 4-2 win over Chicago. He also had 4 shots on goal. So I assume this is easy, right? If Duclair was dropped in your league, you got to go grab him now, because if he was rostered for the start of the year, he's right back in the same spot and he's producing again.
Yeah, keep in mind from that spot, there was room to improve. Let's just say he was still on just about a 50-point pace and the power play just wasn't clicking, but also his shooting percentage is still super low. So before he was booted off the top line, I was actually really into him as being like, oh yeah, he can recover. His shooting percentage is a third of what it normally is. And he's taking as many shots as he did in his breakout last season with Ottawa. So I still feel that way. So long as he stays on the top line. If he's bumped off the top line, I don't care how much his shooting percentage should be better. I'm still just not that interested in him. But playing with Barkov with room to grow, yeah, I would definitely take a chance on Anthony Duclair.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's no guarantees that he stays there. Like we saw Vetrano get a run with Barkov and then Mason Marchment recently. And maybe even by the next game, it'll be Mason Marchment or someone else back there on the top line. But for now, I definitely like Duclair. Yeah, well, he's on that top line. So you're going to have to, again, follow Game Day Lines or go to GameDayLineTweets.com on Tuesday. And the Florida beat writers are really good at tweeting out Florida practice lines. Okay, Montreal has 1 injury, and it's Ben Sherratt, who injured his hand in a fight and was seen wearing a cast the next day. So that's how things are going for the Habs lately, unfortunately. For what it's worth, just a random non sequitur, I like Jesperi Kotkaniemi for next week. He's on the top line. He's been playing with Gallagher and Toffoli, as well as on the top power play. He was on a 3-game point streak before the whole team got shut down by Markstrom on Thursday and Saturday, like we discussed. So I think there's a possibility that Kotkaniemi managers were like, okay, I guess the hot streak's over, and dropped him. But I think that was more to say about Markstrom. And I think Kotkaniemi just in this spot, I think he could really produce. He's clearly a good player, and he's finally getting the opportunity with the new coach.
Yeah, it's really nice to see Kotkaniemi be someone who has benefited from the new coach, although like there were some teases of good deployment here. He's still just 20 years old, so keep that in mind. Keep your expectations in check. But he was on a bit of a run already, got a bump in deployment, saw what looks to me, yeah, it's a season high 18 minutes and 46 seconds of ice in the Habs' last game against Calgary. Only 1 shot over those last 2 games. So, of course, that's not awesome, even if he is playing a lot of minutes, but he's in a good spot and definitely could be a good guy to stream in just to see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm into him. So, we've thrown out a lot of names of guys you might want to stream in for next week, like your Kempes and Kapanins and like a Duclair. So add Kotkaniemi to the list. Maybe look at your schedule, see who you could fit into for the most games. Then let's end on the Rangers, who have 1 player on their injured list, who is Igor Shesterkin. And so who knows if he'll come back anytime soon. In the meantime, I guess they've got Keith Kincaid, who, like I said, shut out the Bruins on Saturday, which definitely surprised me. I'm going to say right now, don't stream in Keith Kincaid thinking he's going to keep this up. I'm not going to guarantee, but I'd be pretty confident that he's going to blow you up the second that you add him. But hey, he wasn't injured. But welcome back, Artemi Panarin, who picked up an assist in his return in the 4-0 win over Boston on Saturday. Also, welcome back Philip Hedl. He's been back for a couple of weeks now. He's been playing on a line with a couple of youngsters, Lafreniere, Kakko, and Hedl in the most recent game. So Hedl's pointless in 4, low TOI, so not worth considering, but nice to see him back. Also, welcome back to Fantasy Relevance, Mika Zibanejad, who had 2 assists on Saturday and put up 5 and 6 shots on goal in his 2 earlier games on the week. Oh, please be back to normal, Zibanejad. That would be so great down the stretch. I'm not going to call it right now that Zibanejad's back, but it seems to be trending in a good direction. And one more, welcome back to being worth grabbing ASAP if he's available. Pavel Buchnevich, longtime favorite of keeping Karlsson. I don't know why you there. You used to.
No, it was like if he's available. Are you kidding me? Like he's been crushing it for a month.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
14 points in his last 13 games, and it seems to be I mean, it's not all sustainable, but a good chunk of it is, and he's gotten turns on the top power play also, which is something that's eluded him. So yeah, if he's still available, go get him, please.
Yeah, so I have this one league that I was invited to midway through the year, and he's not available. I had added him and dropped him a couple of times over the last month, and I had a friend make fun of me and be like, "Hey, you always are adding and dropping Buchnevich. Just make up your mind." And now I see that after the last time I dropped him, he was added by Oshie Glows, and I don't think he's coming back to me anytime soon. So maybe it's like too little too late for me saying that Buchnevich is worth rostering. It's fun. Brian, Buchnevich is like a long time guy on Keeping Karlsson, right? Remember how he would like get in good deployment and do really well, then all of a sudden get bumped to the fourth line for no reason. Kind of like the Connor Garland of old, now that I think of it. But now he's stuck with Mika, who, like I said, is starting to do better. And Kreider's been doing well. So yeah, great spot. And good job, Buchnevich. And good job you, Brian, for doing a great job working through all 31 teams and looking at all of their infirmaries. This has been a blast. I hope people have enjoyed the show. We're going to try this format of a more structured show, like going through teams in some way or another. So we'll see what we come up with for next week. Let us know what you think. Tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson. We'd love to get your feedback. We saw recently some feedback on Reddit, which we really appreciated. So we'll find it. Okay. We'd love to hear. We took some of that into account, by the way, from a thread on Reddit about someone who was not happy with what we were doing on Keeping Karlsson. So like, we want to hear it, and then we could try to make the show better for you. If you like the show, we'd of course appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That always helps us out. Like I said, you can follow us on Twitter. And if you really, really like the show, it's not too late to come join our patron community over on Discord, where we're all helping each other out, giving each other advice, having some fun, game day chats. Plus, we've got a patron cast scheduled for this Tuesday, which is always a really fun show where we, let loose a little bit. We've got a bunch of fun questions from the patrons, and Brian and I answer every single question that we get and have a lot of fun along the way. So sign up right now, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Check out the patron cast. If you don't like it, you can cancel, right? Money back guarantee. So that's keepingkarlsson.com/patron. I mean, money back guarantee in terms of you don't have to pay until the end of the month. So it's kind of like I should say free trial and not money back guarantee. Brian's laughing at me right now, which probably means I've been talking for too long. So let me cut to Brian, who can, after the outro music is cued, which let's do now. You can go ahead and read us the credits.
I will, but first, we've made a weekly tradition of sharing with you some of the big spenders in the Cacupful, courtesy of the Cacupful Stat Attack podcast. This week, we've got Tier 5 Melker. We've got Do the Dougie in Tier 5 Melker spending $32 on Tom Wilson. We've got Tier 3 for Lunda's team. It Still Burns dropping $24 on Carter Hart. And then Filthy Animals over in Tier 6 Filet did the thing where they dropped Carter Hart for Tom Wilson, spending $24 fab to make that change. So we'll see. I guess they all think they can survive the next week without Tom Wilson. Then he'll be back, at which point I think that will be fab well spent, so long as you survive the weeks where he's not playing. If you want to hear more, the link to Cacupful Stat Attack is in the show notes, and you probably heard a little bit of it on Clipping Karlsson just the other day. All right.
Hey, Brian, can I give a quick spoiler for the Stat Attack this week?
Yeah.
So Marcus was unavailable to do the interview this weekend, so I took over interviewing duties, and I interviewed your opponent in Cupful Tier 2 Sweden, Matt Delgallo, and it was a really fun talk. And we also had a fun talk like after we stopped recording about how he plans to beat you, which I'm not at liberty to talk about, but it was really fun to talk to him. And he's gunning, like he's been in Tier 2 for like 3 years in a row, and he really wants to get into Tier 1 next year. So you're gonna have to bring your A game to take out Matt Delgallo. So you can hear that on the Stat Attack coming out tomorrow.
Okay, and you'll tell me all that he said once we are off the air. This episode was researched with Oh No. Okay, and I expect you to tell me all that he shared with you in confidence with me off the air,
of course,
or else we're not friends, and this is the last episode ever of Keeping Karlsson. Speaking of which, this episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our amazing, wonderful, incredible patrons. Logo art by Brandon Weeb, outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, Charting Hockey, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, NBC, Fantasy Sports Edge, and Yahoo.
Yeah, update that note. Great job as always, Brian. Looking forward to doing this all again next Sunday. But before that, I'm looking forward to the Patrioncast, and you're going to get short shifts episodes. So yeah, and there's going to be another Clipping Karlsson. So yeah, stay subscribed to our feed because we got a lot coming.
Yeah, and we like to hope it reaches everyone because fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Good job. So fun. Okay. Thanks, chat. So fun. Like, this is honestly like, I wish I could meet all these people, right? Like, we're chatting all the time, like on Discord and here, with like Patty and Shane and Andrew and everyone here in the chat, Shams. Like, I feel like we're friends. Isn't that weird? Like, when I talked with Matt yesterday, it's like I never talked to him before. And it's like he was like, "Oh wow, I feel like I know you so well because like I listen to your podcast a lot." It was like a nice thing, but it's like also like I really feel like at this point, especially with quarantine, like I'm not really hanging out with my real friends that often. It's like I hang out so much with the patrons on Discord, and
constantly.
You're all great. I don't know. It's a really fun group of people.
Really lovely group.
I don't even hang out with you that much, Brian. Like I feel like we talk business whenever we have the chance to chat. And by business, I mean you asking me different trade offers that you're considering making.
I try not to, and yet it still happins.
Hey, you're doing well. But your trade, what ended up happening with that last trade? Did you end up getting the counter? So you got the deal. So what was it again?
Giordano and Vrana and $5 fab for Brock Besser.
Yeah. Okay. So I can tell you the thing, I guess, that Matt said. He said he was happy for you to trade for Besser because the week that you're playing him, Besser has a bad schedule.
That's the 2-game week. He already told me that too, actually. He was like, I hope you get this deal.
I've actually never heard of this strategy before. So he talked about it this is again like a sneak preview of the stat attack. It's a really smart strategy. Like, look at your schedule in the next coming weeks. And then like, if you find someone that you're playing that you're worried about, trade him a player that has a bad schedule that week.
And a grenade.
Yeah. And it's like, they're
a grenade.
It's like it looks like an even trade. They're not going to look ahead and think to like, look at your schedule specifically versus them like 3 weeks from now, but just like give them that player that's only playing 2 times.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. It's very smart.
I've never used that strategy. I'm going to try that now, I guess. I said that yesterday and then I forgot. It's a good idea. The problem is I suck at trading. I make all these offers and I get back like also like I'm like you, Brian. Like I make bad offers, but I don't do it too often. But anytime I do, they're pretty bad. Like
nobody wants to trade with you. It's harder.
No, but I also make bad offers. I don't know. Like Dustin wrote like I need D or something. Anyone want to trade D? And then I threw out like a Seth Jones for I don't know someone that I thought was somewhat even, and he was
Pavel
like
Buchnevich.
I don't know. That's hard. I just have to stick with my team. I think my team is good. If I had Taylor Hall,
if like Taylor Hall was traded to the Islanders, you'd be in good shape.
I would think so. Anyway, not complaining. Life is good. Brian, we won our matchup in FHT once again. I'll probably suggest to you some moves for next week. We got to decide if we want to keep Ronta. We're probably just going to stream that goalie spot, I guess.
Yeah, Ronta doesn't seem like a keeper.
Yeah. And then I like Kotkaniemi or Kiefer Bellows now. Look like potential good streams. So I'll take a look at the schedule. Anyway, okay. This has been so fun. Shams, by the way, you wrote the whole Discord is great. You're like a big part of that. You're making it great.
Yeah, Shams is the Discord.
Responding to everyone, posting every news item. Shams, we need to talk sometime.
We'll get in touch.
I've never even talked to Shams. Like in person, like I don't even know what you look like or sound like. I guess I know what you look like from your like icon here, if that's you, or like probably some like famous character from a TV show that I'm just not aware of because I don't know, I'm missing something. Shams is the best. Anyway, all right, let's go. Let's go home. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for being here.
All right, stop.
I feel like
it's still recording, by the way.
That's okay. Yeah. I feel like you have it wrong with the daylight savings and your feelings. Like right now, it's only 9:00.
Oh.
So even though it's like, you were worried about it being like an hour later.
Tired, right? It's earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. What am I more dumb about? This thing or thinking that cough was spelled? I knew how to spell cough. I didn't know how Coughlin was spelled or Coughlin, to be fair. I spelled it wrong. Like in my show notes, I spelled it Coughlin. And so I assumed that was right because usually Google underlines the players that I spell wrong. But I guess there's maybe Coughlin is spelled like cough is also a common name. So it didn't correct me. I don't know. I'm just making excuses.
Yeah, you did great. That was a good show. Good
All right, so now I'm going to stop the recording. Bye, everyone.
Oh, we're still on YouTube?
Well, because you said like, oh, by the way. And then I was like, now I'm not going to end it. And then like make everyone, I wonder what it was.
Okay.
Okay, bye.